What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 5pn Chapter 81 Shadow Clone Straw Hats. Sorry, I can't afford the money at the moment. Vivi forced out a smile in embarrassment. Now that Alabasta is in turmoil, the only thing she can use is her own small treasury. Nami stepped forward and snatched the devil fruit from Nobu's hand, plus the previous one, and held them to his chest, one on the left and the other on the right. There was a golden light in his eyes, as if he was about to eat the letter. Really, don't be so stingy, tell all of us. Except for Luffy and Zoro, the rest of the friends looked interested. Luffy doesn't care about this kind of thing. Devil fruit tastes terrible. Zoro won't eat it either. He wants to defeat the man with a sword. Other powers are redundant for him, so he won't eat devil fruit. Normally, he won't eat devil fruit. Just exercising, no combat training. Just by looking at Bailey in Nami's eyes, you can tell what she is thinking. Probably some kind of devil fruit assembly line production, becoming the biggest commercial queen, sleeping on Bailey every day, or something like that. Usopp is the most passionate about getting stronger. If he can get a devil fruit that suits him, it is not impossible to increase his combat power several times. Sanji is a bit weird. I don't usually see him being so enthusiastic about getting stronger, but this time he actually looked at the letter with intense eyes. Having a clear view of the expressions of his companions, Shin snatched the two fruits back from Nami's arms, raised the black one in his left hand and said, "This one is the ability of Explosive Man. He can transform any part of his body into a bomb and detonate it. He is also immune to explosions. This pink one is the Umbrella Girl's ability. She can change her own weight. She can reduce her own weight to lift herself into the air, or increase her own weight to add potential energy to attacks. So you can understand what I meant before, right? It just means very powerful, ha ha ha," Luffy interjected. Shin put the devil fruit on the table, picked up a piece of meat with bones and blocked his mouth. "Eat yours." Sanji took a deep breath to calm down. "You mean, you can take away devil fruit's abilities from a person's body?" Vivi shook her head vigorously. Apart from Sanji, she had the most knowledge about devil fruit in her mind. How is it possible? Can such a thing really be done? What's wrong? Is this kind of thing difficult to do? Nami asked with some confusion. She only knew that devil fruit was worth a lot of money. It's not that it's difficult, it's simply impossible. Otherwise, devil fruit wouldn't be so hard to find. Okay, anyway, I did it, I'm so awesome. Shin forcibly stopped the conversation between the two women and looked at Vivi. "Your Highness Princess, do you want to purchase these two fruits?" Hearing this, Vivi's face darkened. She still wanted these two fruits. "Sorry, I can't afford that much money, what a pity. The letter was not meant to be given in vain. What does it matter? We have only met for a day, and we have not yet reached the level of heart-to-heart communication. Usopp, stop smelling, I can't give you these two fruits." I turned around and grabbed the nose of the long-nosed monster that had been sniffing around, and I could still hear the long-nosed monster's protest. "Didn't you say you can eat whatever you want? These two are not suitable for you, not to mention the ability of the Umbrella Girl. Are you going to pick your nose and shoot someone in the future? P.S. Mr. 5 has not yet shown the skill of exploding air, only the booger bomb and the self-destruction caused by the bird at the back." Usopp frowned when he heard this. After careful consideration, he shook his head. It was so disgusting, but he was still a little unwilling. "Can you let me experience it first and then help me take it out?" "It's okay, but the Explosive Man and the umbrella-holding woman who were used for experiments outside haven't woken up yet. I don't know how long I will sleep." "Forget it." After that, Shin separated a shadow clone and took the two devil fruits back to the melee, and also took back the number 2 scroll. The main body stayed in the restaurant, waiting for Luffy to finish eating and discussing the next action with his friends. Now that everyone's portraits have been sent out, they have been targeted by the sand crocodile, and helping Vivi is just a matter of course. "Speaking of which, Princess, didn't you say there was a permanent pointer when we were in the warehouse?" Shin drank the juice and raised his own question. If there was a permanent pointer, wouldn't it be enough to just take the boat back? "Well, there is." Vivi bit her straw carelessly, with a lingering sadness on her brows. "But now I have been targeted. If I go back rashly, I will probably be discovered by the people from Baroque Works." Previously in the warehouse, Vivi just wanted to test whether Shin and others could cooperate, so she requested an escort. At that time, her identity had not been exposed and she could leave at any time. But it doesn't work now. The Baroque working group has set its sights on him. This time he really needs someone to escort him and help him fight against the pursuers. "I have a good idea." A strange creature suddenly broke into the restaurant. Where did the monster come from? Fire style. Seeing the monster appear, Shin was about to subdue the monster with quick eyes and quick hands. Vivi jumped on him and pushed him to the ground. She had already recognized the identity of the person. "Karim, why are you dressed like this?" After eating and drinking, Luffy raised his head and showed a puzzled expression. "Who is this ant?" "Ahem, I'm A-Man." Karim cleared his throat, feeling a little embarrassed. Zoro beside him had lost his sight and turned his face away. Sanji walked into the kitchen silently, wondering if he was going to get some cash to pay for Ikeram's performance, such as people's daggers, American knives, British sticks, etc. Ikeram dressed up like this to help Vivi divert the fire. He first dressed up as Vivi and used the permanent pointer to go directly to Alabaston to attract the attention of Baroque works. Vivi and the Straw Hats took the normal route and arrived at Alabasta a few steps behind him. "Auntie, you are so brave." Luffy kept patting Ikeram on the back while praising him with a smile. He didn't notice Ikeram's increasingly ugly expression at all. Shin grabbed Luffy's mouth and pulled him back. If he continued to take pictures, Ikeram would be sacrificed on the spot. "Don't call people auntie, it's so rude. Didn't you just call him a monster?" "Shut up, long-nosed monster. Are these dolls in your hand used to pretend to be us?" Nami asked, pointing to the dolls held under Ikeram's arms. Ikeram nodded. "Because there is no more material, but as long as it is placed on the ship and not approached, it can still be hidden." "Don't go to such trouble, I have a better way. Shadow clone technique." Bang bang bang. 6 shadow clones appeared in a row, and 5 of them began to form seals. Transformation technique. Bang bang bang. After another burst of smoke, except for Sanji, a replica of the Straw Hats and Vivi appeared in front of everyone. This is. Vivi and Ikeram were stunned. Ikeram knew that Shin had the ability to transform, but this was the first time he had seen this clone's ability. "Konnichiwa, I am Monkey D. Luffy, the man who wants to become the Pirate King." Luffy ran up to Shadow Clone Luffy and said hello. This was the first time that Shin used the transformation technique to become his partner. Usopp looked Shadow Clone Usopp up and down, exclaiming in admiration. "It's really exactly the same, humph, of course." Shadow Clone Nami looked proud. "It's not just the appearance, it's the same on the inside as well." With that said, Shadow Clone Nami will lift up her clothes to show off her superb transformation technique. Boom. Shadow Clone Nami was forced to disband. Ads by Bid Gear Chapter 82 set sail again holding up a smoking fist. Nami looked at a certain hedgehog with a dark face. Shin frowned, protected Vivi in front of him, and said calmly, "Please do not ascend to the original body if you act as a clone." "Are you kidding, you bastard hedgehog? I was wrong?" Shin hid behind Vivi twice because Nami was too embarrassed to cross Vivi and attack him directly. But this time it obviously failed, and the poor hedgehog was beaten violently by Nami. "It's so noisy outside." Sanji, who was smoking in the kitchen, could hear the screams. He came to the kitchen and made another midnight snack, which was for Ikeram. After Ikeram had finished his farewell meal, Shin created another shadow clone and transformed into Nami. Everyone came to the river bank, where there was a large boat prepared by Ikeram, and with the help of several shadow clone, they could reach Alabasta directly. The moon was setting in the west, but before the sun rose in the east, Ikeram solemnly said goodbye to everyone and drove the big ship out of the port. "Goodbye, Aunt." With a big smile on his face, Luffy stood on the river bank and waved goodbye to him, but he didn't change his name for a while. "Next, let's get ready to sail." Shin turned around and was about to greet everyone to sail when he heard a loud noise. Boom. The sound of explosions came, and the ship that had not gone far exploded with a bang, and the dazzling firelight rushed into the faces of everyone on the shore along with the turbulent waves. The smile on Luffy's face disappeared, and he lowered the straw hat on his head, his voice filled with suppressed anger. "Unacceptable." Vivi bit her lip and stared straight ahead. Ikeram was not only the captain of the escort team, but also an elder who watched her grow up. But now is not the time for her to cry. She must return to Alabasta safely, expose the Sand Crocodile's conspiracy, and prevent the country from chaos. The memories of the 6 shadow clone were divided into 2 parts and sent back to Shin's mind. 5 shadow clone died instantly. Only 1 shadow clone standing on the bow saw the true face of the murderer. A woman with wheat-colored skin and a hat. Because these shadow clone were used as smoke bombs, the chakra they were given was pitiful. The shadow clone only had time to release Sharingan's hypnosis eye. After the woman fainted, the turtle under her actually carried her away from here. "Hedgehog head, don't be in a daze." Zoro patted him on the shoulder, breaking him out of his thoughts. Nami was comforting Vivi, and the others started running to the port to prepare for sailing. Facing the thick fog in the early morning, everyone left this small town that welcomed pirates. It was bustling with people during the day, but now there was silence. All the bounty hunters in the town were defeated, and Mr. Five and Miss Valentine who came were still fainting on the street. The sailing road was exceptionally clean, and there was no drama about beautiful women breaking into the ship. The melee slowly sailed away from here. "By the way, what is this duck?" "Karoo." When the sun completely rose into the sky, the melee continued to move towards the next stop. Shin found Vivi at the guardrail on the 2nd floor and asked, "Your Highness, I have a question for you." "What?" "Do you know a woman who wears a top hat, has wheat-colored skin, and rides a big turtle?" When Vivi heard this question, she immediately thought of someone and her expression turned ugly. "Miss. All Sunday. Mr. Ninja, where did you meet her?" When the ship exploded earlier, she should have been the murderer. "Miss. All Sunday, she is the boss's partner. It was by following her that I found the boss's true identity." "Assholes, do you want to try my special cocktail?" "Want." Sanji came out of the kitchen carrying a plate, interrupting the conversation between the two. When he saw Vivi frowning, Sanji immediately offered the plate. I heard that the first glass of wine in the morning can soothe a girl's heart. I would like to invite Vivi-chan to taste it. It's quite refreshing. Follow the lady's first principle, you bastard. Remember to add syrup next time. Shut up, you sweet-toothed hedgehog. The two of them came to the deck below noisily. Of course, Sanji did not forget to hand Vivi a glass of wine. All the men on the ship gathered on the deck and watched the duck named Karu. This duck was very humane and had a high IQ. I even liked the cocktails prepared by Sanji and kept drinking one glass after another. Vivi on the second floor was obviously not in such a leisurely mood, looking unhappy with the wine in her hand. Nami came out of the kitchen and patted her head. This girl who wanted to save the country was so similar to herself who once wanted to save the village. Don't worry, don't look at them like this, they're very reliable. Shichibukai and other things, they don't take it seriously at all. Really? Looking at the people teasing the ducks on the deck, Vivi had an expression on her face that said, "You're fooling me." Nami's mouth twitched and forced a forced smile. Although they are very unreliable now, they are still very strong. Ah, what are you doing? What are you doing? I was too relaxed with you the past few days. Now it's exercise time. Chidori Chiban, you bastard hedgehog, give me some time to prepare. Seeing Nami leaping down from the second floor to beat up the hedgehog head, Vivi finally had a smile on her face. This group of people really seems to have the power to drive away sorrow. A giant dolphin jumped out of the water and passed over the melee. The water splash reflected a beautiful rainbow. Vivi raised her head to admire this beautiful scene with a peaceful smile on her face. Have a meal. Watch me chop it off and drink it. Fresh ingredients that have not been cooked before. Genjutsu Sharingan. The smile on Vivi's face froze. The dolphin flying in the air encountered 4 consecutive blows, stopped abruptly, and hit her straight down. Ah! The 4 idiots hit the dolphin's side with another series of blows, towards the stern of the ship, and knocked it away. Seeing the dolphins flying further and further away, Luffy immediately shouted. Usopp, don't let it get away, oh, leave it to me. Putting on his own goggles, Usopp swung out a specially made giant fishhook and accurately shot the dolphin's mouth. The tail end of the fishhook was tied to the mast. The recoil of the dolphin put the mast that had been broken once in danger and almost broke again. But the melee was strong and it held on. The fishing operation was a great success. The 4 idiots on the deck laughed and high-fived each other in celebration, completely unaware that the Mary was motionless at this time. Boom. 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 Nami is undoubtedly fair. 1 punch per person, it is not nerve-wracking and the intensity is just right. How are you going to move forward with such a heavy thing? Get rid of it quickly. As you command, Miss Nami, ads by Bid Gear Chapter 83 Landing, Virgin Forest. After a day of sailing, in the morning of the second day, we could already see the looming islands in the distance. That's right, the needle is pointing there. The second island after entering the Grand Line, so looking forward to it. Full speed ahead. There is a river running through the interior of the island, which is enough to accommodate the sailing of the melee. Everyone followed the current to the interior of the island. The ecology of the island is very primitive. There are dense shrubs and weeds around the river, and it does not look like it is inhabited. The plants on the shore attracted Nami's frequent glances. I've never seen these in the illustrated book at all. Quack quack. Wow, the roar of some kind of beast came from above. Nami, who was observing the plants, was startled by the sudden movement and covered his ears. Kawaii, are you talking about me? Of course, Ms. Nami. Is this a primeval forest? Faith looked over and saw a pterosaur-like creature hovering in the sky. The roar just now was caused by it. As it passed by the Mary, the timid duo on board were startled again. So scary, save the records and let's leave quickly. Nami and Usopp said one after another, this kind of place is not like a kind place. Ho ho ho. Another scarred giant tiger came out from the shore, wailing and fell down. Look, look. Nami couldn't stand it anymore and pulled the captain's head directly to ask him to see how dangerous this place was. This is definitely not a nice place. Boom. There was a sound like a volcano erupting, followed closely by a series of loud noises. Usopp's legs were trembling, and he nodded and added. Actually, I have a disease that prevents me from going ashore. If I need to replenish food, I'll leave it to you. Really, Kaya is reading medical books recently. I'm going to ask her if she has such a disease. Let me go. Do you want to watch your dear friend get scared to death by a tiger after coming ashore? Then I'll ask Kaya if she has any secret recipe for courage. Ah, you bastard hedgehog head. Stop being so arrogant, you long-nosed monster. Shin and Usopp fought hard, and the melee docked at a shore with less vegetation. Luffy freed his head from Nami's hands and showed an excited smile. I smell adventure. Sanji, Bento, do you still want to eat? Yesterday's dolphins all went into your stomach. I don't care, I want it. The adventure is to bring a pirate lunchbox. Okay, wait a minute. Luffy, can I come with you? Yeah, okay. Sanji-kun, please prepare one for me, please. Yes, come right away. The crying Nami looked up in surprise. Vivi, are you going too? Well, if I'm here, I'll be thinking wildly. I might as well go for a walk. But this island is too dangerous for you, it's okay, and Karu is with me. Vivi smiled and touched Karu's duck head, completely ignoring that Karu was also scared to death. After packing their lunchboxes, the two of them were ready to set off. Before leaving, Zinsai gave them a phone bug, the one that belonged to Luffy, but considering Luffy's IQ, the phone bug was given to Vivi. After the two left, Zoro jumped off the boat and was about to do some activities. The letter also gave him a phone bug. This roadie didn't know where he would go if he moved on his own. Sanji thought of something and shouted to Zoro, who had not gone far. There's not enough food on the ship. You can kill some wild beasts on the way back. I know, I will catch some prey that you can't catch anyway. Stop, you bastard. Sanji jumped off the boat, came to the green algae head and pressed his forehead. I can't pretend that I didn't hear what you just said. Are you saying that the prey you caught will be bigger than me? No, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about you and the hedgehog-headed guy combined. They're not as big as me. Huh. The letter stepped on the edge of the boat, and with a finger, he was ready to rap. You green algae you. The chanting was forcibly interrupted, and Nami and Usopp held his mouth on the left and right and dragged him back to the deck. Suppressing the hedgehog who was about to break free and fight back, Nami raised his head and said to the two people under the boat. Shin is not feeling well, please continue. Zoro and Sanji looked at each other, and Sanji spoke first. Then the two of us will compete to see who can catch the bigger prey. Just what I wanted. Watching the two of them walk into the forest separately, Nami breathed a sigh of relief and released the suppressed letter under him. Rubbing his messy hair, Shin said unhappily, "What are you doing? I'm so afraid of them. Now I'm going to go out to hunt a huge beast and slap them in the face." When he came to the edge of the boat again and was about to jump off, he had already imagined in his mind the wonderful scene of the two of them whose prey combined was not as big as themselves, and they could only be humiliated by themselves without saying a word. Strange, I haven't hunted yet, why'd I feel so heavy under my feet? You too, stop hugging my feet, how about I leave a shadow clone to stay? Okay, I won't leave, long live. Under the double offensive of Nami and Usopp, Nobu had no choice but to stay with his feet trapped. The area was not as scary as the two of them imagined. The melee had stayed here for half a day and no wild beasts were seen. With nothing to do, Nobu used Chidori Chiban again to urge the two of them to exercise. Different from before, this time the two burst out with unimaginable enthusiasm. Chidori Chiban, who could not cause any harm, competed with the wild beasts in the forest. It sounds so gentle. The peaceful time did not last long, and there was another rumbling sound from the forest on the shore. Nobu immediately ended his training and looked towards the voice. Nami and Usopp were leaning closely behind him. There were trees blocking the surrounding area and the view was limited, but through Sharingan's observation, Shin could still vaguely see that the person making the noise was a creature similar to the lower body of a human being. Lower body. An unpleasant premonition flashed through his mind, and he began to form seals with his hands. Earth-style super light heavy rock technique. Pressing the heads of the timid duo, Shin flew into the air and finally saw the true face of the unknown creature. Hey, this kind of creature really does exist. What appeared in front of him was a giant who was about 21.3 meters tall, wearing a double-horned steel helmet, with shockingly large nostrils, a brown beard on his chin, a dark blue cape, and a primitive-style vest. Uncle, stop it. When Shin Fei arrived in front of the giant, he was not too worried. If the giant was knowledgeable, he might not be able to defeat it, but there was still no problem in running away. The giant seemed to have noticed the little man in front of him, with a look of surprise on his face. Sure enough, I saw it right, someone is really coming. My name is Brogy, human, what's your name? Uchiha Shin is a ninja. Ads by Bid Gear Chapter 84 The Long-Nosed Monster and the Red-Eyed Hedgehog Who Want to Become Giants. So, Uncle Brogy, are you here specifically to see us? Shin held his hands in front of his chest, ready to take action at any time. Brogy on the opposite side seemed very kind and laughed when he heard this question. Gahahaha, yes, I noticed your ship earlier and followed the direction you were heading to find it. Let me ask you, do you have any wine? Yes, there is, but it can only be considered a small amount for your size. It's good to have it. When he heard that there was wine, the smile on Brogy's face became even brighter. He lowered his head and looked around. Naturally, if there is wine, there must also be meat. Found it. A Tyrannosaurus Rex that wanted to go to the river to drink water was on Brogy's lunch list, so he picked up the axe he carried and killed it with a knife. The huge head was lifted with one hand. He turned to look at his shoulder and said, "It's rare that you have a guest, let me entertain you." Hey, I'm sorry to bother you. After confirming that the giant in front of him was not aggressive, Nobu released his ninjutsu and sat on Brogy's shoulders. By the way, I have two other partners there, can we join them? Of course. The more guests the better, ha 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 ha. Holding the dinosaur's head, Brogy knelt down and put his head to the position of the melee, but there was a puzzled expression on his face. Are these two your partners? Yes, wait a moment and I'll wake them up. You two, stop pretending to be dead and pretend to be more realistic. Usopp, your body is still shaking. After Shin explained that the two of them were still pretending to be dead, Shin had to divide 1 and 2 shadow clone, and each of them carried them up and flew up. There was also a shadow clone left on the ship to guard the ship. The body of the Tyrannosaurus Rex was carried on Brogy's right shoulder, with the letter sitting on his left shoulder, and the wine barrel of the Mary in his left hand. Behind him was the shadow clone transporting Nami and Usopp, and the group walked toward Brogy's residence in a mighty manner. Huh? When did there be such a big tiger on the island? Brogy looked ahead in confusion, and saw a 15-meter-tall tiger staring directly at him. He didn't mean to be afraid. He put down the Tyrannosaurus Rex and struck with the axe in his right hand. The tiger was like a phantom, and the attack passed through its body. When Brogy looked up to check, the tiger was no longer visible. He rubbed his eyes in confusion, but found no trace of the tiger, so he had to pick up the Tyrannosaurus Rex again and walk towards his residence. It is said to be a residence, but it is actually just a giant biological skeleton. It may have existed for too long, and its appearance is somewhat petrified, making it look like a cave. Don't you want to eat? Chewing Brogy's grilled meat, Shin looked at Nami and Usopp in confusion. The two finally stopped pretending, but they were still trembling. No, we have no appetite. Usopp looked at the skeleton in the cave behind Brogy, couldn't help but swallow, and quietly poked the back of the letter. Hey, look at those skeletons. Is this giant really a good person? Just, don't tell me that your Sharingan can't tell that it's a human skeleton. Nami also added in a low voice with an ugly expression. I saw it. What's wrong? Of course he saw it, but it was just some human skeletons, and it couldn't prove anything. Even if Brogy really got angry, he would still have the confidence to escape with Usopp and Nami. Moreover, he had experimented once before, and Brogy did not have observation haki, which meant that Shin's genjutsu could subdue him at any time. Uncle, what's going on with those skeletons? Hey, don't ask directly. Brogy was stunned for a moment, and then said, those are the bones of people who came to this island. Uncle, are you hunting humans? Shush. Nami and the two are about to collapse. Can this kind of thing be asked directly? After swallowing a mouthful of dinosaur meat, Brogy shook his head. No, only some of them were killed by me, fools who wanted to hunt me for staying on this island too long. There are also some who committed suicide because they couldn't bear the treatment, and some were hunted by wild beasts. I took them back when I encountered them. Etc. Nami extracted the key words, ignored his fear, stood up and asked. You said you stayed too long. How long will it take to collect the magnetism of this island? Brogy raised a finger. 1 year. Nami and Usopp lost their souls in an instant and have to stay on this terrifying island for a year. It's scary to think about it. Gahahaha, it's okay, just wait slowly. Shin took out a tissue from Nami's skirt pocket and wiped his mouth. It tasted good, but it was too big and made his mouth full of oil. Uncle Giant, there are so many skeletons inside. You have been here for a long time, right? Can't you find a big ship to go to sea? No. Then Brogy explained his origin. He comes from an island in the Grand Line, a warrior village called Elbaf. There's a rule in the village that if there is a dispute and they do not give in, we must accept the judgment of the god of Elbaf. The god of Elbaf will always protect the right people and let the right people survive. Uncle, have you also had a dispute with someone else? Usopp regained his vitality. He was most interested in this kind of story and longed for this warrior-like way of survival. Yes, this island is the arena for me and him. The right person will win the battle and survive. But after 100 years, we still haven't decided the winner, ha 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 ha. Hey, 100 years? The hedgehog expressed his admiration for the longevity species. Don't make such a fuss, we giants have 3 times the lifespan of you humans. But even if you have a long life, it's time to stop after 100 years. What kind of deep hatred do you have between you? Nami didn't understand that even if he had 3 times the lifespan of a human, 100 years would still be considered half of a giant's life. A reason to start the fight? Brogy thought for a while and then started laughing. Gahahaha, I forgot about it a long time ago. Boom. The sound of the volcano erupting blocked what Nami wanted to say, because it was the bell that started the battle. Then, I'm going. Brogy picked up his axe and walked towards the center of the island. Nami looked at him speechlessly, not understanding why this kind of fighting continued. It was such a baffling battle. Usopp stood upright at this time, bid farewell to Brogy with awe-inspiring eyes, and explained to Nami. They're the real warriors. They forget the reason for fighting and fight purely for the honor of the warriors. What I pursue is exactly what the so-called brave warrior is. I want to be a man with such a sense of honor. So you want to become a giant? Do you even understand what I'm saying? If that village is filled with such warriors, then I really want to find a chance to visit. There will be a chance. Didn't Uncle say before that their village is somewhere on the Grand Line? Shin stepped forward and patted Usopp on the shoulder. Although he didn't quite understand this kind of fighting, he had always been supportive of his partner's dreams. Letter. Usopp looked at him moodily, then wiped the corners of his eyes, turned over and sat on his back. Are you going to ride me to Elbaf? I want to see this honorable battle between warriors more clearly. The decision is yours, red-eyed hedgehog, use the super light heavy rock technique. Ads by Bid Gear Chapter 85 MVP. Miss. Golden Week. Earth-style super light heavy rock technique. Shin did not reject Usopp's request. He also wanted to watch this battle of giants more directly. Compared with Brogy, the giant he fought looked slimmer and had a long beard. His right-hand weapon was a giant sword, and his left hand was also equipped with a small buckler. The two were not life and death enemies, and they could still chat during the battle, but they were merciless in their attacks and aimed their attacks at the vital points. They have experienced this kind of battle too many times in 100 years. Whether it is the opponent's moves or strength, they are all too familiar with it. If no outsiders intervene, they may not be able to determine the winner if the fight lasts for another 100 years. When the Straw Hats were attracted by the Battle of Titans, deep in the forest, in a candle hut with a significantly different painting style, two uninvited guests had already arrived. The interior decoration of the candle cottage is simple, but as a place to stay, it is a bit luxurious to have a round table dedicated to drinking tea. A man with a hairstyle of 3 quietly looked at the 2 reward orders on the round table, with a secret smile on his lips. Blue Ogre and Red Oni of the Giant Pirates are so lucky. A warrior's honor. How stupid. Do you already have a countermeasure, Mr. 3? There is another person in the hut, a little girl sitting cross-legged on a round table eating senbei, with a palette next to her. Of course, Miss. Golden Week. Wisdom is the trump card of an agent. It's a pity that Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine never replied. Otherwise, it would have been simpler. They are really 2 wastes. However, let's start with the group of people who know the boss's secret. In addition to the bounty orders from the 2 giants, there are 6 portraits spread out on the round table. They are the 6 people except Sanji. He does not intend to attack forcefully. Wisdom is the key to his victory. He's going to lose. That perverted cook. Zoro dragged a huge triceratops and walked strenuously through the dense forest, with a winning smile on his face. He was very satisfied with the prey he had caught. That is, despite the presence of the volcano, the island was still quite hot. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and saw a familiar figure standing under a tree not far away. Hedgehog-headed, are you here to wish me victory in advance? In the shadow under the tree, Shin Jung was standing there with his arms folded, his head lowered, and his eyes covered. Zoro frowned, sensing that something was wrong. If it were a normal letter, he would have said with an unhappy face. I came to see if you were lost, but the letter in front of me was unusually quiet, not even moving at all. Phew. A white projectile was shot from the grass on the side and headed straight for Zoro's face. Being prepared, Zoro naturally would not be hit by such an attack. He turned his head slightly to avoid the projectiles. The projectiles that missed the target hit the tree beside the road and suddenly dispersed, turning into a ball of white powder. Are you on drugs? Zoro was already standing with his sword in hand. He didn't have time to get into the 3-sword style stance, so he held 2 swords and attacked the grass. Yi Dao performed a head care operation on the grass, but the expected enemy did not appear. Instead, there was a little girl wearing a top hat, holding a paintbrush and a color palette, sitting there pitifully. Kid? He thought it might be an agent chasing him, but he didn't expect it to be a kid. Is this kid the enemy? Or was it someone else who was responsible for the attack just now? In a short period of time, Zoro thought of 2 different possibilities, and his body couldn't help but pause. It was this pause that gave the little girl an opportunity. The brush quickly mixed blue and yellow to form green, and drew a symbol on Zoro's body. All the symbols look like this. I only found the clearer yellow symbol. Just substitute it and change it to green. The green of calm. I'm just scaring myself. There are no enemies anywhere. Zoro, who was still on guard, instantly retracted the 2 knives, with a leisurely smile on his face, and even sat down cross-legged in front of the little girl. Let's enjoy our free time now. Well done, Miss Golden Week. Can the mission be over? I want to eat senbei. Don't be anxious, I have to rely on you next. Boom. Dory and Brogy exchanged friendly blows, declaring the end of the battle. Battle 73,466. Number 73,466. Gahahaha. The 2 men who fell to the ground laughed at the same time. 100 years of fighting had not affected their friendship at all. Dory, I got some wine from the guests. It's been a long time since I drank. Give me some. Brogy gave Dory 3 barrels of wine left at his residence, and also learned a piece of news from Dory. There are 2 guests over there, and a duck. Is he your partner? You should be talking about our captain, Master Brogy. Ha ha ha, what a wonderful fate. It's a pity that the wine is not enough for us to have a good drink. When Brogy came back, Usopp started shouting. Nami stared at the pointer on her wrist and worried. She couldn't really wait here for a year. The letter went into Brogy's cave. As we all know, caves represent adventure. Boom. The interval between this volcanic eruption was extremely short. Dory drank 3 barrels of wine, tasted Luffy's pirate lunch, and hurriedly raised the giant sword. It seems that the god of Elbaf is urging us. Gahahaha. Come on, uncle. Luffy waved goodbye to Dory. Like Usopp, he admired this kind of warrior very much. After Dory left, a little girl holding a paintbrush and palette suddenly ran out of the grass in a hurry and shouted. Help me, huh? Little girl. Luffy looked around and saw a Tyrannosaurus Rex following the little girl. He stretched out his arm and hit her. Rubber rubber. Pistol. The Tyrannosaurus Rex couldn't dodge and was hit on the head, falling directly. Vivi stepped forward and wanted to hold the little girl in her arms. The little girl with disheveled hair and dirty face deftly avoided her embrace and went straight to Luffy. Luffy tilted his head with a puzzled expression. He thought the little girl wanted to snatch the meat from his hand, so he hurriedly protected her in his arms. This is mine. The brushes are flying on the color palette, 2 strokes of yellow and 1 stroke of blue. Friends yellow-green. I'm so selfish, you're my friend, here, eat. Luffy, who was guarding the food just now, had a yellow-green symbol painted on his forehead. His attitude changed instantly and he handed the meat to Miss Golden Week with a smile. The little girl breathed a sigh of relief. The amount of exercise today was obviously too much for her. She refused Luffy's bone and meat and said to him, "Will you do me a favor? Of course, we're friends. Help me knock down that woman over there. Are you an enemy? How could Mr. Luffy listen to you?" Vivi took out her weapon, the peacock chain, from her chest, put it on her little finger, and put on a defensive posture. Luffy frowned and thought, looking in Vivi's direction from time to time, but in the end he shook his head. "No, Vivi is also my partner. I can't hurt her, Miss." Golden Week showed an expression that was indeed the case, and then changed her statement. "Do you have a phone bug? I want to make a call." "I have this. Shin bought it especially for me." Luffy looked proud. Without waiting for Vivi's reaction, he stretched out his arms and grabbed the bag hanging on Karu's body. The phone bug was inside. After receiving the package, Miss Golden Week was completely relieved, sat cross-legged on the ground, raised her head and said to Luffy, "Can you take Vivi and Karu to the picnic? Okay, we're friends." Ads by Bid Gear Chapter 86 Bagaya Road, but no Yalu. "What are you doing, Luffy?" Vivi was frightened and wanted to push Luffy away. She didn't want to participate in some inexplicable picnic. Luffy wrapped his hands around Vivi and pressed his whole body against Vivi's body, pouting in a classic coquettish expression. "Please Vivi, she is my friend, you can just sit there and say nothing." "Don't want, Karu, go find Mr. Ninja to help. Luffy is in a very bad situation right now." Quack. Karu saluted with his wings, indicating that they were wrapped around him. "Ah, Duck, you can't leave either. My friend said that you too should participate." Luffy clamped his legs around Vivi's waist, released one hand, and grabbed Karu back as he was about to leave. Luffy was trapped in place, one person and one duck. Miss Golden Week walked up to a few people very sensibly, and laid out blankets taken from the grass in front of them, and placed teapots, cups and senbei on them. While nibbling on the senbei, he stood on tiptoes and fed Luffy a piece. "Thank you Luffy, I'm so happy to have so many people at my picnic." "It's nothing, we are friends." With something in his mouth, Luffy muttered in response to this strange friend. He didn't even know what Miss Golden Week was called. Miss Golden Week calmly arranged her hair, braided it into 2 braids, put on a hat, and at the same time washed away the color on her face with the water she had prepared in advance. It was like a real picnic, eating, drinking tea, and silently watching the battle of giants not far away. The battle between the 2 giants was now closer to Dory's residence. The battle was no longer visible from Brogy's residence. They had a good line of sight, and occasionally crushed wood chips flew towards them. At the end of the first giant battle, Miss Golden Week and Mr. 3 carried the stunned Zoro to the nearby area. Mr. 3 made a simple disguise for her to avoid being discovered by Vivi, an undercover agent. Leaving the fainted Zoro and the task of holding Luffy down after the battle between the giants began, Mr. 3 left with the poison. As for what to do with the remaining drug Mr. 3, the answer is also very simple. The remaining dose is not enough to knock the giant unconscious, but even a slight loss of consciousness during battle can have serious consequences. When the weapons of both sides collided and reached a stalemate, Mr. 3 finally found an opportunity. He used his fruit power to create a very thin candleball and threw it hard under Dory's nostrils. The candleball shattered as soon as it came into contact with the chin, and the 5 white projectiles wrapped in it continued to move forward, and then scattered with a bang. White smoke penetrated Dory's nostrils, and he couldn't help but feel dazed. The strength on the giant sword loosened, and it was severely pressed down by Brogy's giant axe. The target was exactly on the chest. The battle between the 2 always focused on the vital points. Although this century-old axe was slow, it could still tear open Dory's chest. Blood splattered, and Brogy reacted and pulled back in time to prevent the giant axe from going deep into Dory's chest. Seeing him half kneeling on the ground, Brogy struck his own chest with an axe, and chopped out a similar shape to Dory's. "There are rats interfering in our duel, so don't say I'm taking advantage of you." If Dory was injured before the fight and chose to hide the injury and continue fighting, Brogy would not hold back. That would be an insult to Dory, but the fight has already begun. Intervening now would be an insult to both of them. So he gave himself an axe, and if Dory wanted to continue fighting, he wouldn't take advantage of him. "Dory." The friend didn't answer for a long time. Brogy stepped forward and bent over to check with a sad look. This was not the victory he was pursuing. He pushed Dory's shoulder, but the latter fell directly to the ground. Before he could get up to look for the meddler, Candles had already covered his feet, and a giant hammer formed on top of his head. Boom! The giant hammer crashed down, and after 2 consecutive battles, Brogy, who was already exhausted, fell to the ground. In front of him was Miss Golden Week, who was having a leisurely picnic, Luffy with her head lowered, Vivi, who was wrapped in Luffy's arm and looking desperate, and the culprit, Mr. 3. I didn't expect this mission to be so simple, he said happily after taking the black tea handed over by his partner. Miss Golden Week raised her head and said, "Then our mission is over, right? There are 3 more people. If the candle puppet battle fails, I'll have to leave it to you." "Okay, Miss Golden Week had a sad face, she didn't like doing tasks. You are the ones who intervened." Brogy, who was lying on the ground, roared angrily and struggled to get up, but a giant candle sword suddenly penetrated the palm of his right hand and fixed it firmly to the ground. Hey, don't make a big noise and startle the snake." When Mr. 3's ability was activated, he was about to pierce Brogy's other hand, but his slipper-clad foot suddenly kicked him aside. Looking back, he saw Luffy with a struggling look on his face, gritting his teeth and growling. "Don't do anything to Uncle. What's going on? Miss Golden Week, has your ability failed? It looks like he is about to break free. I asked him not to do anything before. There is really no other way, so let's make them into wax figures first." Miss Golden Week is also an old partner of Mr. 3. After hearing this, she knew what he was going to do. "Luffy, could you please stay aside, okay?" Luffy gritted his teeth and uttered 2 words from his mouth, but his body couldn't help but want to help his friend, and he stiffly walked to the side and stood. The first time she got out of trouble, Vivi rushed towards Miss Golden Week. There was Karu's package beside her. "Phone bug. Mr. Ninja told me the number. As long as I dial it, there is still hope. Robbing other people's belongings is not what a princess should do." With a heavy punch on the back of the neck, Vivi fainted and her arm failed to touch the package. "Hey, you're awake." Zoro's voice came to her ears. Vivi opened her hazy eyes and gradually regained consciousness. She looked around uneasily and found that her feet were stuck in a multi-layered candle holder. Although her body could move, she could not escape unless her feet were cut off. Next to him is Zoro, who is also trapped. On the second floor of the candlestick behind him, Karu has the same experience. Luffy is riding on it with his right hand raised high. The difference is that the candlestick extends out 5 protrusions, connecting Luffy's limbs and neck, completely wrapping them, so that Luffy can only assume the posture of raising his right hand. At the top is a rotating table lit with candles, which continuously spreads candle powder, which enters the bodies of 3 people and 1 duck with their breathing. Candle holders Luffy's mouth can still move. He is constantly spewing trash talk and shouting the letter's name from time to time. Bagaya Road, Shin. Help me, but no way, Shin, help me. It's a pity that this is a virgin forest and the sound can't be transmitted at all. Why don't you shut his mouth? He's so noisy. No, Miss Golden Week, the wax figure's dying cry is also part of art. Mr. 3 and Miss Golden Week were leisurely drinking tea in front, looking like they were sure of victory. Vivi showed a desperate look. It seemed that she could not save Alabasta. She couldn't help but said to herself in annoyance. "If I had known better, I would have kept the phone bug with me so that I could make the call as soon as possible." "Phone bug? I think one is here." Vivi turned her head in shock, then hurriedly raised her finger to her mouth, signaling Zoro to communicate in a low voice. "Mr. Bushido, where is the phone bug you mentioned? I'll look for it. I remember Hedgehog 2 pushed one to me." Zoro groped up and down, and finally found his own phone bug in the green belly on his waist. He did not take it out, but kept inserting his hands into the green belly and said, "Found it. Call Mr. Ninja quickly so we can be saved." "You don't remember the number, right?" Finally, Vivi dictated the number, and Zoro dialed it quietly. Fortunately, Luffy kept talking trash, attracting Mr. 3's attention. The call was quickly connected, and a dull voice came from Zoro's abdomen. Moses, here is the letter," Luffy happened to shout. "Shin. Help me." Ads by Bid Gear Chapter 87. 3 people and 1 duck escape from trouble in the weird fire style. It's so strange, why Uncle hasn't come back yet. At Brogy's residence, the 3 of them walked out of the cave. Nami and Usopp also joined the treasure hunt in the cave under the instigation of Shin, but unfortunately they found nothing. The faint sound of clashing weapons that could be heard outside disappeared, but Brogy's figure was still missing. There seemed to be a wild beast that was howling in a rhythmic manner. Taking advantage of his free time, Shin rubbed his hands and was about to continue training with Usopp and Nami when his hands even lit up with lightning. Suddenly there was a memory in my mind, which came from the shadow clone who was staying on the ship. Damn it. His expression instantly darkened. He had known better than to go on a treasure hunt in a cave. "Nami, Usopp, there are enemies on the island, take care of yourselves." Without giving the 2 of them time to be surprised, Shin made a seal with his hands, Dory's residence, who knows where Dory lives. Spiritualization technique. The moment the spirit floated out, Shin noticed Luffy's soul breath, and then the spirit immediately returned to the body. Earth-style super light heavy rock technique. Damn, I didn't realize you were hiding a phone bug. Mr. Three's furious voice reached Vivi's ears. At this time, she was in no mood to respond, because beside her, Zoro kept his hands in his abdominal curls and turned into a wax figure. Realizing that Vivi and Zoro were whispering and Zoro was still maintaining that weird posture, Mr. Three immediately covered his upper limbs and head with candles. Then he stepped forward and took out the phone bug hidden in the belly, quickly hung up the phone, and completely turned Zoro into a wax statue. Originally, I planned to let you slowly turn into wax figures from the inside out, but it seems that I can only turn you into imperfect works of art. Mr. Three threw the phone bug on the ground with a low voice. He did not want to fight another prisoner with a 50 million bounty. Judging from the information he obtained, the mysterious ninja can clone himself and perfectly transform into others. He also has a variety of elemental attack methods. Compared with Luffy's rubber physique, the mysterious ninja's ability makes him more afraid. He chose to deal with Luffy's side first, partly because the key figure Vivi was here, and partly because he also wanted to quietly deal with the others first, and finally concentrate all his efforts on dealing with the mysterious ninja, and he planned to retreat immediately if he couldn't deal with it. The smooth progress of the plan made him a little relaxed, and he had the idea of turning a few people into perfect works of art, but now. Suffocate me to death, Your Highness. The candle liquid clung to Vivi's body and gradually hardened, making Vivi's struggles ineffective. Hateful. Luffy stared at Mr. Three with a ferocious face, his teeth chattering, but he couldn't do anything as his limbs and head were trapped. Until Vivi was completely wrapped in the candle liquid and turned into a lifelike statue, the candle liquid was still climbing upwards, wrapping Karu under Luffy, and even spread to his chest. He suddenly sensed something, closed his eyes, and squeezed out a few words through his teeth. Shin. I will beat him away with my own hands, as you command, Captain. Above the candlestick, the letter finally arrived at full speed, with a cold face and the Magatama in his eyes spinning crazily. Magic Yaohong technique. The scene in front of Mr. Three seemed to be covered with a layer of blood-red gauze, and several thick iron nails were inserted into his body, holding him firmly in place. His body was shaking constantly. He had never seen this kind of fighting method before, and there was some fear in his tone. This is, hate yourself for not having a Sharingan. The letter fell from the sky and came to Mr. Three. He controlled his desire to behead him and looked past him towards Miss Golden Week. The little girl sat there harmlessly, chewing senbei in her mouth, with no intention of doing anything. But Shin didn't let down his guard. The previous phone call made him know how weird this little girl's abilities were. I don't want to take action on the brat, and you shouldn't take action on my partner. Get some sleep. He immediately activated Sharingan's hypnosis eye and made him fall asleep. Letter. Save Zoro and Vivi, and by the way, the duck. Luffy shouted anxiously. After all, the two people below were still in the state of wax figures. Without saying any more nonsense, Shin knew that this thing was a candle. He stepped forward and put Luffy's straw hat on his head. He took out the wire from the knife bag and wrapped it around the upper bodies of the three people and Karu's head. Fire-style dragon fire. Using the steel wire as a guide, the flame instantly clung to the three people and one duck, and the candle also melted quickly. This is also the reason why Shin took away the straw hat in advance, otherwise with his weird fire style, he would have set Luffy's treasured straw hat on fire. As the flames burned, the upper bodies of the three people finally came out, and Karu's duck head was also exposed. As expected, the power of the three people was clearly under control, but the clothes on the upper bodies of the three people were still completely burned. Fortunately, he had the foresight not to wrap their bodies around them directly, otherwise it would not look good to see two more naked men in the dense forest. The jutsu had stopped, the partially lit candles were still burning, and the candles holding their lower bodies were softening. Seeing Vivi's shy face protecting her key parts, and then looking at the black t-shirt on her body, Shin made a decision in her heart. I'll definitely wear a coat next time. Look up, I'll put it on for you. In the end, Shin chose to unite with Luffy Zoro to form the three Forest Brothers. Free. Luffy exerted force on his lower limbs, but the softened candle could not trap him. He roared and rushed towards Mr. Three, who was still trapped in place. An angry punch struck the side of Mr. Three's face. The immobility of the illusion was only the user's perception that he could not move. In reality, there were no real nails, so this punch directly hit Mr. Three. Fly out. Mr. Three, who was flying in the air, screamed and his eyes were full of fear. He knew that the situation was not good. After falling to the ground, he ran towards the forest in panic. What a bullshit mission, what a partner, that ninja immobilized himself with just one move, plus Luffy, he was looking for death if he didn't run away now. Don't run. Waving his fists, Luffy ran away angrily. Shin didn't follow up, but he still sent a shadow clone over just in case. Of course, the shadow clone wouldn't take action until the last moment. Ontology now has more important things to do. Yo, isn't this a green algae head? I haven't seen you for a few hours, why are you so angry? He stepped forward and patted Zoro's green head with a teasing look on his face. After a while, Zoro recovered and he wouldn't have this good chance. Zoro took a deep breath. The feeling of suffocation was not pleasant, but after hearing this, he turned his head and wasted the air in his lungs. It's all because you were so unrecognizable as a hedgehog, otherwise I definitely wouldn't have been deceived by that wax figure. You mean to blame me? No, I'm partly to blame. It's not just a part. After all, he is a third-rate swordsman. It is understandable that he was captured alive. No, I mean I should just cut you down when I see you. Ads by Bid Gear Chapter 88 The Emergence of Armed Color. Fire-style Dragonfire. After rescuing several people, Shin targeted Brogy, who had no role to play, and the giant candle sword penetrated his hand and fixed him to the ground. But the target of the ninjutsu is not the hands, but Brogy's trapped feet. Just leave the candle giant sword to the coolie Zoro. Fortunately, this time it was a normal fire style, and it didn't trigger the weird fire style that had to burn something. Nobu didn't want to see any giant whip. The first moment he was freed from the trap, Brogy stood up, raised his head and cried loudly. Wow wow wow, it's so embarrassing. God Elbaf will definitely be disappointed in me when he sees my ugly look. Wow wow wow, Dory, I accidentally killed my friend. Whoa whoa whoa, that hateful meddler. The three people below covered their ears. They were indeed giants. Even their cries were loud. If I had known better, I would have let him lie on the ground. Like a waterfall. Mr. Ninja, Miss Bushido, look, there is a rainbow behind. Wow. It's so noisy, who is it? I saw Dory, who had been sentenced to death by Brogy, slowly sit up, holding his head with his left hand, and covering his chest with his right hand, feeling dizzy and painful in one place, coupled with Brogy's harsh cry. Have I come to hell? Dory, that's great, luckily you're alive? Don't hug me, it will hurt my wound. Looking at the two giants hugging each other tightly in front of them, the three people below smiled. It would be best if no one died. Okay, you two wounded, let me treat you. While the medical letter was working hard to treat the two huge guests, the chase in the forest also came to an end. In terms of physical strength alone, Mr. 3 is no match for Luffy. Although he delayed a lot of time with his fruit ability, he was still beaten to pieces by Luffy's flying kick. After the two got closer, Me.3 Feet's fruit ability completely lost its offensive effect. Luffy seemed to be able to predict the future, evading the candle slime by a hair's breadth every time. That ninja and the Straw Hat Boy, are they really worth 50 million? What on earth do Marine think? Making a candle wall to block Luffy's attack, Mr. 3 couldn't help complaining about Marine. Come and see for yourself. Are these two things worth 50 million? There is no other way to delay it any longer, we can only use that trick. Attack. Candle Champion. The candle liquid released by his hands covered his whole body, and continued to rise, turning into a robot-like candle weapon, leaving only Mr. 3's head outside. Candle Champion. So cool. Luffy's eyes flashed with golden light, and drool seemed to flow from the corner of his mouth. What should I do? Do you want to continue running away? The huge armor did not bring much sense of security. Mr. 3 felt uncertain. The oppressive feeling caused by the illusion was too strong. Even though they just looked at each other, he instantly lost the ability to move. No, I can't run fast in this form, and I will definitely get entangled by the Straw Hat Boy. Now that Ninja hasn't followed, I just need to defeat the Straw Hat Boy. Champion's fist plowing fist. While Luffy was dazed, Candle's arms were swung up like windmills, and Candle Champion swooped forward to pin Luffy down. Boom. So dangerous. Luffy wasn't such an idiot that he was so distracted during the battle that he couldn't see the situation clearly. He jumped into the air to avoid the attack and was ready to counterattack. Rubber. Seal. The right foot wearing a slipper stretched out and kicked the Candle Champion in the chest. Mr. 3 did not defend himself at all. Such an attack could not penetrate his iron-hard candle. Just as he guessed, the candle received Luffy's kickhead on, unscathed. So hard, Luffy was a little distressed, but he quickly thought of a solution. Rubber. Pistol. He extended his right arm to attack Mr. 3's exposed head. Of course, Mr. 3 was on guard. He raised his fists and blocked his head tightly. He purposely made his fists so big to protect himself. Head. Damn it, we can't get in. Give it up, this is my most outstanding work of art. Rubber Bazooka. Boom. Luffy's most powerful move knocked back the Candle Champion. With a clicking sound, there were some cracks, but they were quickly repaired by Mr. 3. Rubber. Big mouth to chew on. Seeing that normal attacks didn't work, Luffy simply took a deep breath, enlarged his head, and chewed it directly. This time it had some effect, but not much. Besides drooling all over me, what else can you do? The two started a strange battle in the forest, and neither side could do anything to the other. Luffy couldn't attack, and Mr. 3 couldn't hit Luffy either. Seeing that the battle had reached a stalemate, Shadow Clone, who had been following the two men, turned the straw hat in his hand and considered whether to take action. It's not that Luffy can't defeat his opponent, but that such a stalemate is destined to take a long time. Forget it and leave it to Luffy, otherwise my dessert will be stolen again. I seem to have learned it. Until the 8th rubber pistol was blocked by Mr. 3, a smile appeared on Luffy's face, and what Shin said on the ship flashed in his mind. Incredible power, what is it called? Clenching his right fist, a power called Haki began to emerge, wrapping his fist and dyeing it a metallic black. Rubber. Pistol. It's useless. No matter how many times I come, you can't break through my defense. Champion Candle once again raised his fists to protect his exposed head. Mr. 3 felt very calm. He had already blocked such attacks 8 times in the battle. Boom! There was no crackling sound, not even a stalemate, but a fist with a metallic luster suddenly blasted away the blockage. As if the attack was powerless, the metallic luster faded away, but the fist still hit Mr. 3 firmly on the face. The impact of the frontal punch cannot be underestimated. Mr. 3 could even hear the sound of his nose breaking. Unable to maintain the candle championship, he flew backwards and hit the tree trunk behind him. The pain of the impact on his back made him almost unconscious, but he still gritted his teeth and held on, struggled to get up, lowered his head to hide his resentful expression, and his voice was full of flattery. Give me a break, my abilities are very practical, right? I can join your pirate group, or you can use me as a handyman. Hee, I don't want you to be my partner. The two suddenly looked at each other. Luffy kept his hands in place and rushed to him with a slight bend at the waist, with a big smile on his face. Fly, rubber, rocket launcher. The hands that were left on the spot were retracted, and they hit Mr. 3's abdomen with a huge impact, sending him flying to the horizon. In addition to the screams, a vague sentence could be heard. Ah, this is not 50 million at all. Marine I asterisk. After defeating the enemy, Luffy finally let out a bad breath, touched the back of his head, and wanted to put on the straw hat. Ah, straw hat still has the letter there. It's a little regretful, I'm not used to being without a straw hat all of a sudden. A familiar feeling came over. Luffy's sight was suddenly blocked by the edge of the straw hat, and behind him, Shin's right hand held the straw hat and placed it on top of his head. Letting go of his hand, Shin hooked his right arm on Luffy's shoulder, and couldn't help but smile on his face. As expected of the captain, well done. Hee. Ads by Bid Gear. Chapter 89. You have a good figure, quite strong. Armed color. Luffy is indeed a genius. Dory's residence. Shin received the news from Shadow Clone, and couldn't help but smile. He was worthy of being a captain. He was lying on the ground a little weakly. It was not easy to heal the injuries of these two big men. Fortunately, the damage caused by sharp weapons was not beyond his ability. Uncle, can you help bring my two friends back? The salted fish letter began to awaken Brigitte, who was basically back to his original state, and Nami and Usopp were still there at his residence. This small favor was insignificant compared to the life-saving grace. Brigitte nodded sharply, got up and left. Just in time, I'm going to hunt some prey and treat you well. Also rising was Dory, who picked up his greatsword and prepared to go looking for the hapless beast in the forest. Next, what should we do with this little girl? After the two giants left, Shin looked at Miss Golden weak with a headache. She had already woken up. Vivi was wearing the t-shirt that Shin had taken off, and was guarding her with Karu. The power to control people's hearts was really weird. Are you going to kill him? The enemy is the enemy. Because of the little girl, Luffy and the other three almost died. Shin had no intention of being merciful. Turning the kunai in his hand, Shin looked at Zoro aside, preparing to ask the victim for his opinion. Green algae head. What are you going to do with this little girl? Scratching his green head, Zoro looked confused. What should I do? Isn't the incident over? Quote. Really? The kunai in his hand stopped spinning. He should have guessed long ago that Luffy and Zoro would not care about this kind of thing. Unlike the two of them, Zoro was able to use the back of his sword to attack in Whiskey Peak, while Nobu aimed his attacks at the enemy's vital points. Now that the victims are no longer being held accountable, Shin has no intention of killing the other party, but he still has to hold back and take out her abilities first. She didn't wear the scroll with her. Now let's find out what kind of ability the little girl is. After resting for a while and regaining a lot of strength, he stood up and walked to Miss Golden weak. Sharingan had already opened. Seeing his figure, the little girl lowered her head in fear and kept fiddling with the corners of her clothes with her hands. Of course, Shin did not use any torture, and Miss Golden Week readily revealed her abilities. She is not a person with fruit abilities, she just has some special powers. As long as a symbol is drawn in a specific color, it can act as a psychological suggestion to the target. It does not have the ability to directly control people as Shin had guessed. What the hell, Luffy can't get rid of your so-called psychological suggestion even if his teeth are almost broken. Quote. This trick is more effective for simple-minded people. That makes sense. After confirming Miss Golden Week's ability and ignoring her sad eyes, Shin immediately destroyed the brush and palette. Now she is just an ordinary little girl. Hey, everyone. Luffy's excited shouts came from the forest, but what ran out was a primitive man dressed as a savage. How about it? Isn't it very handsome? I wonder why it took you so long. Shin looked at his captain with a speechless expression. Didn't this idiot realize that his manual ability was a negative score? It sounds like a grass skirt, but it's actually just a few broad leaves inserted into the pants. The upper body is also randomly tied with leaves with vines, giving the impression of roughness. By the way, I made one for you too, come and put it on. Quote. Give it to Zoro, the green color suits him well. I do not want it. It's not up to you, Luffy, let's go. Rubber, tangle, ninjutsu quick dressing technique. What kind of ninjutsu is this? Keep an eye on him, Luffy. I'll go find some more vines. Oh, leave it to me. Two bastards. Finally, with the help of Shin and Luffy, Zoro successfully put on new clothes. As if he had accepted his fate, he lay quietly on the ground and lost his soul. Everyone, are you okay? Along with Brigi's heavy footsteps, Nami's call came. The three of them had arrived. Nami immediately looked for Vivi, while Usopp noticed Zoro and couldn't help but blurt out three words. So green. Ah, veins popped out on the lifeless Zoro's forehead, anger arose in his heart, and his hatred grew in his guts. He rushed forward and pushed Usopp to the ground. Ah, what are you going to do? Hedgehog, Luffy, come quickly and find the vines and leaves. Give it to me. Luffy seemed to have found some fun and ran towards the forest happily, followed closely by Shin. It didn't take long for the original three brothers to disappear and become the original trio. The three of them stood in a row, each greener than the last, and the greenest one was Zoro. Why are you hiding in the tree? I'm looking at the scenery. In order to avoid becoming the fourth person, Shin quietly climbed to the top of the tree and refused to go down no matter how much Zoro shouted. Shin, can you find Sanji's location? Dory had also returned at this time, bringing 4 beheaded dinosaurs with him to prepare for a barbecue banquet. When it comes to cooking, it's natural to invite the Straw Hats chef back, but Sanji doesn't know where he is right now, so Nami immediately thinks of the letter on the tree. Okay, wait for me. Shin responded, silently moving to a taller tree and sitting cross-legged. Spiritual technique. The spirit floated out and instantly sensed Sanji's soul aura. This time Shin planned to bring Sanji back in other ways, and the spirit followed the breath and found a candle hut somewhere in the forest. As this made by Mr. 3. How come the pervert is in a place like this? The spirit passed through the wall and saw the scene inside the house. The unlucky pair who had met before fell to the ground. Sanji bent down in front of them and picked up something. Let me see. Ah, you bastard hedgehog, don't just scare people. The letter with half of his body inserted into the wall frightened Sanji and he almost kicked him. We'll discuss the details later. Why are you coming to me? You are really free. The battle over there is over and we are about to have a barbecue party. Mr. 3, I know. Where are you now? I'll rush there right away. No need to go to such trouble, I'll give you a new experience. Don't resist. With that said, Shin's spirit body plunged into Sanji's body and took over control. You have a good body, quite strong. To be able to do such a thing, suddenly I feel like it's not bad to be a ninja. If an outsider saw this scene, they would definitely find it strange. It was obviously the same body and the same voice, but it seemed like two people were having a conversation. Today I will take you to experience the feeling of releasing ninjutsu. Huh, I don't have that chakra you're talking about. Don't worry, my spirit body can pass chakra to you. Although you can't keep it, it's enough to release a few ninjutsu. Come on, give me control. Don't do weird things with my body. Okay, that's the kind of person I am. Earth-style super light heavy rock technique. Ads by Bid Gear. Chapter 90. At the end of the hunting competition, the winner is Nami. This is an unprecedented experience for Sanji. Chakra flows in the body and the body flies freely in the air. After finding the direction of everyone, Sanji flew over quickly, but suddenly stopped on the way and landed in the forest below. Why are you collecting leaves and vines? This is a wonderful tool that I will use later. Wow, Sanji can fly too. Luffy raised his head and made a sound of envy. He also wanted to fly. It must have been the hedgehog head again. Is it a ninja's ability? Zoro spoke with emotion. Every time he saw Shin showing off new abilities, he couldn't help but tighten his grip on the handle of the knife, and he became more anxious to become stronger. It seemed like he dropped something. Usopp's eyes widened, taking in the falling leaves and vines. As Sanji landed, he heard other sounds. Ha 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 ha. Are you pretending to be a savage tribe? Usopp is the long-nosed priest, Luffy is the monkey brought back by the tribe leader, and the green algae head is. Ha 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 ha. Green algae head is a particularly green cactus that grows in the tribe, ha ha ha. Sanji laughed so hard that tears almost came out. The moment he landed, he grabbed the control and started complaining. There was a reason why Shin specifically used the spiritualization technique, so he immediately started fighting with him. Hurry, use the leaves I brought. Asshole hedgehog, this was your plan from the beginning, right? If you don't smile, you won't be able to use it. It's your own fault. Hurry up. The three primitive brothers. Oh. With Shin's efforts, the three primitive brothers became the four primitive brothers. Damn it, I don't want to wear something like this. This dress suits you very well, Sanji. Nami walked up with a smile on her face and looked at Sanji with an appreciative look. Yoshi has decided, even if you beat me to death, I won't take it off. As if he was greatly encouraged, Sanji raised his hands and ran to prepare the ingredients excitedly. Well done, Nami. Shin walked out from behind her. He was the one who specifically instigated Nami to say these words. It's okay, come on. High five, it's a ritual. Snapped. The moment their palms touched each other, Nami suddenly used strength to hold Nobu's hand tightly. Luffy and Zoro, who had been prepared for a long time, swooped in and tied the only alien with vines. Nami, you double agent. Sorry, Usopp asked me to do it. Ah, the hedgehog who relaxed his vigilance failed to escape the trap and was pushed to the ground by the three forest brothers. All the male members of the Straw Hats formed the primitive group. But the greenest one is Zoro. There is another duck, don't let it go. Quack. In the end, all 5 people and 1 duck put on simple grass skirts and leaf clothes, perfectly blending into the dense forest environment. Luffy was playing hard and boldly prepared to attack Nami, but was punished by Nami's 2 punches. It's delicious, Sanji's cooking is the best. Luffy spoke with satisfaction. Sanji's grilling was precise, and the taste was infinitely better than the thick barbecue made by the 2 giants. Hey, that's all he has. The green algae head who was easily caught was so loud. Vivi-san, this is Alabasta's permanent pointer. Everyone was surprised. When they learned that it would take a year for the magnetic force to be fully charged, everyone was ready to set sail directly and find a direction to try their luck. Unexpectedly, Sanji, who has never had any roles, actually got a permanent pointer. Then Sanji told everyone what he had experienced. Because his portrait was not found, Mr. 3 did not regard him as a target, so he has been leisurely looking for prey in the forest. By chance, he found the candle hut made by Mr. 3 with his ability. Because there was black tea in it, Sanji chose to go in and have a cup of tea to relax. The phone bug hidden in the candle hut also rang at that time, and the caller was none other than Mr. Zero, Shichibukai, crocodile in Vivi's mouth. The sand crocodile did not know the true voice of Mr. 3, so Sanji took advantage of the situation and played the role of Mr. 3, passing on the false news that the mission had been completed. The unlucky combination sent a permanent pointer and asked Mr. 3 to return to Alabasta to prepare for the final battle. But the unlucky combination knows the true identity of Mr. 3. He is responsible for collecting and reporting intelligence and monitoring other members of the Baroque working society. Of course, these 2 little animals were no match for Sanji and were easily dealt with. Sanji also successfully took over the permanent pointer. After that, the letter arrived. Thank you Sanji-kun. Vivi couldn't help but step forward and hug the great hero Sanji. He couldn't help but smile greasily, but his brows couldn't help but wrinkled. Why do you smell the hedgehog's head? Without further ado, let's set off now. Oh. Found it. In the candle hut, Shin pushed open the door and found the unlucky combination who was unconscious. Let's leave it to Uncle Brigi and the others to take care of it first, and by the way, it will be Mizutsu's playmate during Golden Week. Regarding Miss Golden Week, Shin had no intention of taking her on board the ship to act together. He had no intention of protecting a little girl, let alone a former enemy. He planned to leave her here and give her to Uncle Brigi to take care of her first. After the incident was over, Vivi would have time to return here to deal with her. Miss Golden Week and the unlucky combination are of little help to the Straw Hats, but for the Princess Vivi, their abilities are quite useful. Near the river, in front of the melee, lay a Tyrannosaurus Rex and a Triceratops. I won. *2. *2. You lose. *2. Look, my prey is bigger. How many kilograms of meat can such a thin prey weigh? My rhinoceros is obviously heavier. Yours is obviously made of bones, so there must not be much edible part. How long are you going to make the noise? You can't take them all away anyway, so just keep the usable parts. The ship is about to sail. Yes, Nami-san. Hey, Usopp, look, I won, right? I'm not interested in being a referee. Speaking of which, where did Mr. Ninja go? Yeah, look, my prey is obviously bigger. Shin ran over on a dinosaur with a slender neck and shouted to everyone with a proud look on his face. After leaving the unlucky combination and Miss Golden Week at Uncle Dory's residence, he remembered that there was a hunting competition, and immediately picked the largest dinosaur and controlled it with Sharingan. What are you doing, idiot? Didn't you say you should go do something serious? Don't be so harsh. Nami, Luffy, look, mine is the biggest. Ah, this is the guy who swallowed me in. It's really big. Hey, it's just held up by its long neck. Obviously my rhinoceros is the heaviest. Yes, that's right. With such a small head, you must not have a high IQ. I don't cook this kind of thing. If you eat it, you will become stupid. You guys are so insensitive, it's obviously mine that's bigger. No, my rhino is heavier. No, my lizard has the most places to eat. Boom, boom, boom. Get ready for sailing. As you command, Miss Nami. Ads by Bid Gear. Chapter 91 Farewell Little Garden. Naturally, it was impossible to take away all 3 dinosaurs. Under the command of Sanji, everyone took the most delicious parts and brought them back to the melee. After packing up, it's time to set sail. Following the river, the ship can reach the sea directly. As the melee moved forward, everyone also saw 2 figures standing at the mouth of the sea, namely Dory and Brigi. One on the left and one on the right stood on both sides of the estuary like guardian angels. The 2 of them clasped the weapons in their hands and said, The main reason people who go to this island can't get to the next island is right ahead. In the name of Elbaf, we will open the way for you. Believe us, no matter what happens, we must move forward straight. The wind was blowing everywhere and the pirate flags were blowing. The melee sailed through the estuary and entered the vast sea. The sea surface in front of them swelled, and a huge creature emerged, opening its huge mouth to eat the melee as a snack. It was a goldfish bigger than the island, and the melee was not even bigger than one of its teeth. Has it appeared? The island-eating monster. We must not let our friend's pirate flag be broken. The two of them raised their weapons and got into stance. The last time they fought side by side like this was 100 years ago. Nobu, use ninjutsu to take us away quickly. Facing the huge mouth that seemed to be able to swallow the world, Nami collapsed and urged Shin to use his power. I refuse. Uncle and the others told us to move forward in a straight line. That's right. Go straight ahead. Usopp's legs were shaking and tears welled up in the corners of his eyes, but he still mustered up the courage to shout. Luffy was rarely serious. He sat in the special seat and raised his hands in the air and shouted. That's right. Go straight ahead. Don't be kidding. This is different from Laboon's time. That's so long-winded. Here, ice cream. Is it time to eat now? Accompanied by the screams of Nami and Vivi, the melee sailed into the goldfish's mouth. As the mouth closed, everyone's eyes went dark. Dory and Brigi at the estuary were ready at this time, waving their weapons at the same time. Hakoku. The invisible impact target was aimed at the goldfish's belly, without any pause, and penetrated it like a rock. The melee rode on the impact and continued to move in the direction of Alabasta. Accompanied by the hearty laughter of the two giants, the weapons in their hands completed their missions and broke apart one after another. ... Sooner or later, I'm going to Elbaf. 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 Luffy and Usopp, two idiots, arm in arm and shouting at the edge of the boat, can't wait to get to the village of giants. But that was later, now the goal was to get to Alabasta. After confirming again that there was no problem with the heading, Nami noticed Vivi sitting cross-legged on the deck. What Sanji brought was not only the permanent pointer, but also the news that Mr. Zero was about to launch his final plan. Vivi was worried about her country. Before Nami could step forward to comfort him, someone came first. Vivi-san, today's snack is shortbread, would you like a piece? Don't worry, I'm here. Your country will be fine. Sanji-kun, thank you. Miss Nami, do you want to have a drink? There is black tea and coffee here. Two bastards. Don't fight, your share is in the kitchen. Luffy and Usopp hurried to the kitchen to try some snacks. Sanji frowned in confusion, shouldn't there usually be a hedgehog to snatch it? He also specially took out 3 copies. After looking around, he found Shin sitting cross-legged on the front deck, quietly closing his eyes, as if he was resting. Did you use illusions on me again? You sweet tooth didn't come to grab the food. Shin opened his eyes and saw Sanji walking over with an unhappy look on his face, and put the plate in his hand in front of him. Here, the remaining butter shortcake and black tea, in order to avoid waste, I will give it to you. I want to drink milk. Go get it yourself, you bastard. As if he didn't hear what he said, Shin moved his butt slightly away from Sanji, leaned against the guardrail, picked up the shortbread and ate it leisurely. Whispering sound. Sanji curled his lips in displeasure, but turned around and walked to the kitchen. While everyone on the boat was busy doing their own things, Zoro stayed alone on the back deck of the stern, wielding a huge barbell for chopping exercises. If I can take care of the enemy myself, others don't have to bother. He tried it when he was trapped. His sword skills could not cut off the candles created by Mr. 3. Otherwise, Zoro would have been able to kill Mr. 3 himself based on his fighting skills. The hedgehog head can easily trap the enemy in place, and Luffy has also awakened his armed color. Even Sanji brought a permanent pointer, but he was a complete liability in this battle. He could not help but swing the barbell faster. It's not enough. I have to become stronger. Tonight, Shin is responsible for the vigil. Because the fatigue of the shadow clone will also be transmitted back to the main body, several men should take turns to do the vigil. When it was Shin's turn before, he would create a shadow clone and go back to sleep. In this way, he would be a little tired when the shadow clone was disbanded the next day at most. But since the main body rested all night, this fatigue would not affect his condition too much. However, for some reason today, the letter remained in its true form. Wrapped in a blanket, he stared at the sea and yawned. He was not the only one left on the deck. Under him was a huge barbell, and below that was Zoro, who was sweating hard. It is not suitable to make too much noise during training at night, so Zoro thought of Shin's weighted rock technique, which can prevent the sound of the collision of barbell plates from disturbing other people. It is indeed very effective, but if you don't disturb others, you will get people's trust. Don't keep humming and humming. It's disgusting. By the way, how long will you be training? Don't be verbose. After all, you didn't take the initiative to ask for the vigil today. I originally planned to train all night. I have a reason for that. Get out of here and go to bed, you bastard. Whispering sound. When Zoro stopped moving and put down the barbell, Shin stood up and went to the observation deck where the view was better, but Zoro called out to him. Hedgehog-head, use illusions on me. Ha, why are you so crazy tonight? Nobu's face was filled with surprise. Who in his right mind would think of actively entering the world of genjutsu? He didn't know infinite Tsukuyomi. Zoro frowned and said a little uncertainly. You said before that observation haki can see through illusions. I thought it might have some effect on awakening observation color. What's wrong with you today? Are you so enthusiastic about training? Did the kappa add stimulants to your dinner? That shouldn't be the case. Luffy also ate your share. Why don't you sleep well now? Don't be verbose, I just want to master haki quickly. Whether it's the sight color or the weapon color, it can make me stronger. This time it was Shin's turn to frown, with a rare serious look on his face. I said, do you take haki too seriously? Are you stimulated by seeing Luffy's awakened arm color? There are many ways to increase strength. Pursue the ones that are easy to get into. Hearing these words, Zoro was thoughtful. Ever since he learned about haki's existence, he seems to have been pursuing armed sex. In terms of basic skills, I am much worse than the three of you. Haki can't even see his shadow, but I know that I am a ninja. Haki has been unable to awaken for a long time. I can study ninjutsu to strengthen myself. You are a swordsman, right, although you are a third-rate swordsman. Then let's study the sword first. Before he finished speaking, Shin's whole body fell forward weakly. Zoro hurriedly stepped forward, but when he was about to touch Shin's body, he felt a thin layer of resistance. This little bit of resistance dissipated at the first touch, and he caught Shin's head with his shoulders in time, and Shin's whole body seemed to have lost its bones, hanging feebly on him. Hedgehog Head. Ads by Bid Gear. Chapter 92 Sick Letter. Shin's sudden fainting caused the originally quiet melee to become noisy. The friends who had just fallen asleep put on their clothes and gathered in the conference room on the second floor. A quilt was spread on the dining table for Shin, who fainted to rest. Everyone gathered around him. Nami was questioning. What do you mean by fainting suddenly, with no reason at all? Sanji silently made sweets, Vivi was taking Shin's temperature, and Usopp stopped Luffy, who was about to stuff meat into the patient's mouth. The noisy movement woke up the groggy Shin. He opened his eyes with difficulty and saw a strange Luffy beast. Are you planning to scare me to death? Ah, wake up. Great. Hearing Shin's slightly weak voice, Luffy threw himself on Shin's body in excitement before he had time to restore his face to its original state. Okay, don't hold me down, you stupid captain. Shin hurriedly pushed Luffy away and sat up cross-legged. With so many people watching, he felt like he was dead lying there. You should continue to rest, Mr. Ninja, your body temperature is already 40 degrees. How is that possible? I feel fine now. That thermometer is broken. Why are you all hanging around here? Don't ask questions knowingly. Why did you faint suddenly? Nami spoke immediately. Usopp followed closely and sighed. That's right. I thought Zoro had killed you. It scared me to death. Zoro. Taking the Anko soup from Sanji, Shin opened his mouth and explained to Zoro. It wasn't Zoro. He probably just caught a cold from the cold wind. Everyone looked suspiciously. How could the cold wind knock out the ninja who had always been invincible since going out to sea? In order to prove his innocence, Shin had to stand up and jump around twice to show that he was really fine. Everyone except Luffy was doubtful, but after Shin's constant persuasion, they returned to their dormitories to prepare for bed. No one noticed that his eyes had turned red. Naturally, it was impossible for the patient to continue vigil, so Sanji volunteered to take over the task of vigil. In the boys' dormitory, Luffy and Usopp slept on the bed carelessly. Zoro kept his eyes open. He didn't believe in the cold wind. Thinking of Shin's initiative to keep a vigil tonight, or his body to keep it, and thinking of the thin resistance film that appeared when touching his body, Zoro had a guess in his mind and asked. You are a shadow clone, right? There was a long silence, and Shin, who was sleeping above him, did not reply. Zoro straightened up and reached out to the hammock that belonged to Shin. Sure enough, an illusion. In Zoro's sight, Shin was lying on the hammock in a messy shape, but he reached out and found nothing. Hedgehog Head, don't die so hastily. Also unable to sleep was Vivi, because she saw a piece of news that almost broke her. When the two of them returned to the girls' dormitory, Nami took out the thermometer, but it was Vivi who took Shin's temperature. When she came back, she took it back and planned to put it back in the drawer. The moment she opened the drawer, a newspaper quickly attracted her attention, with a message clearly recorded on it. Open black lens bracket. The situation is reversed. 300,000 soldiers of the King's army defected to the rebel army. Close black lens bracket. Vivi was shocked. Originally, the King's army for peace was 600,000, and the rebel army was 400,000. Now the situation was reversed. The King's army for peace was only 300,000, and the rebel army's strength increased to 700,000. The rebels are already in a certain victory situation, but the date in the newspaper is 3 days ago, which means that the Alabasta territory may already be full of war. Oops. Seeing Vivi stunned, Nami couldn't help feeling upset. She hid the newspaper just because she didn't want Vivi to worry. But because of Shin's sudden fainting, she forgot about it for a while. I'm sorry Vivi, I hid it on purpose because I didn't want you to worry. Don't worry, Shindu said he is fine. Let him use ninjutsu to speed us up tomorrow. We will definitely catch up. Nami took Vivi, who was looking in pain, into her arms and comforted the strong princess. But Nami's acceleration plan seems to have been ruined, and Shin's physical condition is not good. The quilt on the dining table was not removed. At this time, Shin was lying weakly on it. Nothing was safe and sound. He was so uncomfortable that he died. Not long after leaving the island where the two giants were, he noticed that his body began to become weak. I thought it was just a common cold or something, but it passed after a while. But things did not go as he expected. Instead, his body became weaker and weaker, and his head became a little dizzy. He excused himself to go back to the dormitory to get something. With the help of Shadow Clone, he finally found the cause of the disease. The 8-sign seal that covers almost the entire back is black, and on top of the black, there is a touch of deep purple that looks like a bruise. He understood that it was poisoning. Although he didn't know when he was poisoned, he made a prompt decision and used kunai to open the poisoned area. He wanted to cure it through rough bloodletting therapy, but there was no way. The only medical ninjutsu he knew was healing jutsu. He had no corresponding medical knowledge and could only deal with ordinary trauma. The only person on the ship who has some medical knowledge is Nami. She only knows about minor illnesses such as septicemia, colds and fevers. Although Shin's physical fitness is not as good as that of Luffy and the other three, his physical fitness will not be affected by minor illness. So uncomfortable. Bloodletting had no effect, and the loss of blood in his body made his condition worse. Fearing that it was an infectious disease, he used chakra to form a resistance film around his body to block the droplets sprayed when he spoke. At the same time, he deliberately kept his distance from everyone, and even asked for a vigil at night. As for why you didn't take the initiative to speak out and see a doctor first. Nami's newspaper was handed to her as a letter. After seeing the information in the newspaper, Nami specifically asked him not to tell it. At the same time, he also had another plan. Soot had said that my resilience is amazing. The red stacked armor I wore before also had the Senju family emblem. No matter how you look at it, I am a traitor to the Uchiha family. Is it sealed? All kinds of evidence show that I had expected the sealing before. Ash had sent the Haki manual, and Master Long sent 3 scrolls and a round stone plate. If it is really self-sealing, it can't be unsealed until death, right? The letter lying on the dining table murmured to himself. I don't believe that I didn't leave any room before, and I didn't consider the situation of near death at all. That's right, he was going to use this virus to test the seal on his back. If the toxicity is not strong and you can recover on your own or wait until you find a doctor, then forget it. If this virus is really fatal, he still has the seal to cover it up, but he doesn't believe it. Even if it is really a bloody plot of taking over the body, the old monster in the seal can't come out to take over a body that has died of illness. Next, where should we go to get some sleep? I originally said that there would be no one in the dormitory during the vigil tonight to catch up on some sleep. After some careful thinking, the letter was wrapped in a quilt and arrived at the warehouse on the first floor. The entrance to the girls' dormitory was here. He certainly didn't want to carry out a night attack. Instead, he walked to the swing door at the entrance and lay down. Perfect. Nami wakes up the earliest. If she wants to go out, she has to push me awake first. Ads by Bid Gear. Chapter 93 Coma Letter. In the early morning of the next day, Vivi joined the girls' dormitory, and the original small bed was a little crowded. Vivi fell asleep very late because she was worried about her country, and she was still sleeping soundly when Nami woke up. Nami, who got up first, carefully lowered her steps to avoid disturbing Vivi. However, when she was about to go out, she found that the trapdoor that usually opened with a push could not be pushed this time. What's going on? Are the parts aging? Nami showed a confused look and couldn't help but increase the strength in his hands, but he couldn't open it. Ah, I encountered something like this early in the morning. She scratched her hair irritably, unable to even go out to wash up. What's wrong, Nami? Vivi woke up at this time and asked with hazy eyes. Then the two of them worked together to finally push the trap door open. As soon as I went out, I saw a hedgehog wrapped in a quilt, lying there with its face on the ground in a sprawled posture. Asshole hedgehog head, you were blocking the door just now, right? Quote. Nami realized something was wrong, but Shin never responded or even moved. She stepped forward and turned over the hedgehog wrapped in quilt with great effort. She saw Shin's brows furrowed and his eyes closed in pain. What happened? Letter. Wake up quickly. No matter how much Nami shook, Shin had no intention of waking up. She put her hand on Shin's forehead. So hot. At this moment, Nami thought clearly about the reason. What the hell, the thermometer wasn't broken at all last night. This hedgehog really had a fever of 40 degrees. Vivi, come and help me. The two girls worked together to move the letter back to their dormitory and placed it on their bed. You take care of it here, and I'll wake them up. Nami anxiously told Vivi this and left in a hurry. Although the other people had little medical knowledge, they were not allowed to know anything else about the situation, especially Sanji, who was responsible for keeping vigil last night. After Nami left, only Vivi with a tangled look on her face and Shin who was unconscious were left in the room. The sense of chaos that she just woke up from has disappeared, and Vivi is now very confused. What should we do? Alabasta is in chaos right now, but at the current rate it will take 6 days to arrive. Mr. Can the ninja survive until that time? The best way now is to look for other islands and find doctors to treat Mr. Ninja. But this will delay time, and many people in the country will sacrifice. Vivi bit her lips tightly, unable to sort out the thoughts in her mind. On the one hand, she had her own country, and on the other hand, she was seriously ill. She sat in front of the bed and thought for a long time, her eyes moving between the newspaper on the table and the letter on the bed. Wiping the corners of her eyes, she finally made her decision, took out a thermometer and stuffed it into Shin's mouth. After measuring her temperature, she prepared a wet towel. Putting the water glass within Shin's reach, he carefully tucked Shin into bed and walked out of the room. At this time, there was a lot of excitement on the deck. Luffy and Usopp hurriedly went to check the status of the letter. Nami took action to stop these two noisy idiots. Zoro leaned against the mast, holding the knife and lowering his head without saying a word. Sanji, who was keeping watch at night, smoked cigarettes one after another, probably blaming himself for not noticing anything unusual. Nami informed everyone about the news in the newspaper. If she was sick, she would choose to go to Alabasta first, but now it is Shin who is sick, and she is everyone's partner, and she is not qualified to make decisions for everyone. Before everyone had time to discuss, Vivi opened the warehouse door and walked out. She shouted to everyone on the deck. Everyone, be quiet. Focusing her eyes, Vivi set her sights on Captain Luffy. Luffy, you are the captain of this ship. Mr. Ninja is very ill, but there are still 6 days to sail from Alabasta. We urgently need to find an island with a doctor. Before Luffy could reply, Nami spoke first, with a bit more worry in her tone. But Vivi, your country is not. It doesn't matter. Vivi smiled and shook her head. Nami, you said that Mr. Ninja can use ninjutsu to speed us up. Yes, the letter will speed us up. Luffy showed a big smile, and the others also raised the corners of their mouths, truly recognizing Vivi as a partner. Sanji remembered something and looked at Zoro with a teasing look. Which direction do you think we should go? The corner of Zoro's mouth twitched, thinking of the same thing. There is already a patient on the ship. Do you want to be the second one? Don't say that. It worked very well last time. What did the hedgehog say? It's a swordsman's intuition, right? Okay, stop making trouble now. Nami came out to stop the two of them, and explained how to find the island. You can't just run around in any direction. Listen up, the Grand Line climate is chaotic, but the waters near the islands will be relatively stable. There are 4 kinds of islands in spring, summer, autumn and winter, and each island has its own 4 seasons. But the one that stands out the most is the snow. Whenever you see snow and the sea is a little calmer, it means there may be an island nearby that is experiencing winter. We are still heading in the direction of Alabasta, but we should also pay attention to the route near the route to see if there is heavy snow or other relatively stable weather. Understand. Seeing his friends nodding one after another, even Luffy was rarely serious, Nami showed a satisfied smile. But before that, let's have breakfast, Sanji, please. Yes, Nami-san. In the kitchen, the boys and Karu gathered here, and Nami and Vivi went back to the dormitory to take care of the patients. In front of the refrigerator, Sanji was picking at the same ingredients. Usopp asked curiously, "What are you doing, Sanji?" Sanji said without looking back, "I'm picking out fresh ingredients." A foodie wearing a straw hat poked his head over and said, "Will Shin get better after eating something?" "No, I'm not a doctor. I'm just going to make some nutritious meals. This time the hedgehog is sick. It's a rare occasion, so I'll give him fresh ingredients." Hey, what do you usually feed him with? Rotten vegetables and the like. What do you imagine me to be? At most, it's a bit of bad food, rotten food, as long as it's not poisonous. I fed it all to Luffy. Really, even like this, it's delicious, ha 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 ha. Luffy laughed heartlessly and didn't care about it at all. After all, it was really delicious. Usopp breathed a sigh of relief. He thought he and Luffy were treated in the same way. Then what we eat are all fresh ingredients. That's great. No, Sanji picked up a cabbage and explained. The freshest ingredients are reserved for Nami-san and Vivi-chan. Then he pointed at Usopp and Karu. The normal ingredients are for you and the duck. Feed the bad food to Luffy, there are some bad food. If there are not many, they will be allocated to the hedgehog heads and green algae heads. The distinction is really clear, say Kappa. Ha, what do you mean by that tone? Have some respect for the person who cooks for you, you bastard. Go find that duck and respect you. Ads by Bid Gear. Chapter 94 Letter from the Corpse. After an uneasy breakfast, everyone went about their duties. Vivi stayed in the girls' dormitory to take care of the patients, while Nami, the navigator, took charge of the overall situation. The rest of the people dispersed around the melee, watching for any signs of the island. Nami felt something strange in the air and breathed a sigh of relief after feeling it carefully. Is it a storm? It's right behind and can't affect the Mary, so don't worry about it. Just as she guessed, the originally calm wind blew up, and in an instant, a huge storm formed. Nami, will there be an island there? Quote. Are you an idiot? Nami raised his head and once again despaired of his captain's IQ. Half a day passed like this, and everyone took a break until Sanji prepared lunch. After Nami finished eating, he returned to the dormitory with his share of the letter. Although he hadn't woken up yet, he was guaranteed to have food as soon as he woke up. Vivi, leave this to me, you can go to the restaurant to eat. Vivi's share was not brought back. She had been bored in the dormitory for a long time. It happened that during lunchtime, Nami came to change shifts with her. After Vivi left, Nami put his lunch on the bedside table, picked up a medical book from the bookshelf and started reading. Although the hope was slim, she still looked forward to finding the cause of Shin's illness from the book. After quickly and carefully flipping through this not-so-thick book, Nami could not find the answer. Sigh, there are only some simple diseases. If I had known about them, I would have bought more medical books. Sighing, she put the book that she had read several times back on the shelf. It only recorded some simple illnesses. After closing the swing door, she prepared to change her clothes. The storm in the morning did not affect the melee, but brought some light rain. Just as she picked out a new piece of clothing and was about to take off the one she was wearing, a weak voice stopped her. Pay attention to your appearance, there is a man here who is breathing. Shin. The movement of his hand stopped, and Nami looked back in surprise. Shin had been in a coma, so Nami didn't think about avoiding him. Hey, he actually told me to stop immediately. He was really a gentleman. Don't compare me to that pervert Kappa. Shin leaned his back against the bed with great effort and changed to a half-lying position. And I said I'm not interested in little girls. I also said that I was. Forget it, do you feel any discomfort? I feel very sick to my stomach and I need an ice cream in urgent need of chocolate flavor. I'm talking about you. Nami's face was full of black lines, this sweet tooth is hopeless. No, and you are not allowed to eat cold food in your current state. There is a nutritious meal made by Sanji on the bedside. Do you want me to feed you? I'm not that weak yet. It is said to be a nutritious meal, but to be precise, it is nutritious porridge, with a lot of chopped vegetables and fruits added, as well as meat to supplement protein. It can be said to be very comprehensive. It tastes better than usual. Is it an illusion? While eating, Shin asked about the current situation. How long have I been unconscious? How far are we from Alabasta? It didn't take long. It's noon the next day. Because of you, Vivi suggested that we look for an island with a doctor first. It's still far away from Alabasta. Yeah, Mr. Ninja, you're awake. Vivi's voice of surprise came. She just came back from dinner and saw the letter that she had woken up. Hey, Vivi, would you like some nutritious porridge? Shin held up the bowl in his hand to say hello, but Vivi was stunned for a moment, then smiled. Didn't you always call me your Royal Highness, Princess Vivi, etc. before? Really? Oops, being in a coma made me forget how to say the word princess. Liar. I just said it. The smile on Vivi's lips was even brighter. Unlike the other members of the Straw Hats, Shin always addressed her with honorifics, unconsciously showing a hint of alienation. Now, the letter has finally omitted the honorific, and the change of title also means that the relationship between the two has become closer. Obviously you still call me Mr. Ninja. I have a reason for that. Why did you keep calling me a princess before? Because she joined a work company, Vivi can't help but use the prefix Mr. when addressing others. Everyone else on the ship seemed friendly, and Vivi could call them by their names normally, but only Zoro and Shin. The former always has a cold face, and the latter has always been a little alienated from her, so she has always called them Mr. Bushido and Mr. Ninja. Now that she is used to it, she can't change it for a while. Shin did not really struggle with a title. Vivi's initiative to deviate from the route to find a doctor meant that she truly regarded him as a partner. Everyone in the Straw Hats learned that Shin had woken up and came to watch. Luffy immediately wanted to grab the nutritious porridge, but Nami held him down and beat him up. After eating, Shin fell asleep again. Luffy wanted to water Shin to cool down, but was beaten by Nami again. It was dinner time and Shin was still awake. Luffy tried to stuff meat into his mouth, but was beaten by Nami again. At night, the ship sailed through the night for a while, and they did not stop until they could no longer observe the distant scenery with telescopes. The goal is to find the island. During the day, the field of view is wide and the efficiency is higher. Moreover, everyone has been busy for a day. Even Luffy sat in the special seat and occasionally used a telescope to observe the front. The night watchman tonight is Usopp, and everyone except him has made bunks in the girls' dormitory to avoid any accidents when Shin wakes up at night. The next day, the melee continued to move forward and entered a sea area with floating snowflakes. Everyone changed into thick clothes and added a quilt to Shindo. The appearance of snowflakes also meant that there might be an island spending the winter nearby. Zoro came to the observation deck with a better view and observed the surroundings. The island was not found, but a man was found standing on the sea. Putting down the telescope, Zoro rubbed his eyes to make sure he saw it correctly. There was indeed a man standing on the sea. Is he the same ninja as Hedgehog? Will he have a way to cure diseases? Zoro put down the telescope and shouted to Luffy and Usopp, who were clearing snow on the deck. There is a ninja standing on the sea in front of us. Do we want to negotiate? Really? Luffy immediately threw down his snow plowing tools and rushed to the bow of the ship excitedly, as did Usopp. The two of them are still very interested in ninjas, and in their minds, ninjas are people with various magical abilities. Maybe this ninja has a way to heal Shin. As the ship approached, the three of them finally saw clearly what the ninja standing on the sea looked like. Wearing a black and white fur coat, carrying a bow and arrows and matching quiver, the most eye-catching thing is the wavy mouth. Zoro couldn't help but complain. A hedgehog head and a wavy mouth. Ninjas all have this kind of virtue. However, the person in front of him was not a ninja. Luffy waved his raised right hand, and before he said hello, the sea surface below the mouth of the wave swelled and a huge steel submarine with a mast surfaced. The surging waves pushed the melee back and forth. Luffy stood firm and stared at his right hand with excitement. I can also use ninjutsu. Summon the big iron ship technique. Ads by Bid Gear. Chapter 95 Lying Letter. Are you an idiot? This is obviously not what you summoned. Zoro on the observation deck held his forehead and sighed. I thought I met my hedgehog-headed counterpart, but it turned out that I was just standing on top of the submarine. As the three people watched, this round submarine, dozens of times larger than the melee, began to bloom like a flower. The surrounding iron sheets unfolded outwards, transforming from a submarine into a giant sailing ship in the blink of an eye. So big. Luffy and Usopp opened their mouths in admiration, and Zoro on the observation deck had already jumped down. Nami and Vivi are looking after patients in the girls' dormitory, and the task of looking after a few idiots on the ship has been given to Sanji. Don't start a conflict. If the other party has a doctor, Hedgehog Head can be saved. Oh. With a smile on his face, Luffy nodded vigorously, as if he had seen Shin regain his former energy. But the other party had no intention of negotiating at all. Groups of gunmen rushed to the deck of the melee and pointed their weapons at the four people. The four of them were quite restrained and barely resisted the desire to take action. Not to mention Usopp, Luffy and the other three would have already taken action based on their previous personalities. A fat man with dark purple hair, a big mouth, and a cylindrical chin made of iron, came to the boat wearing a thick winter coat, an iron outer armor, and a white animal fur. PFF, let me ask you a question. What's going on with that guy? He even eats the sword. Is it delicious? Ah, it hurts just watching him eat. No need to be rude, this is Lord Wapple, the captain of our Iron Bucket Pirates. Throwing the sword with only the hilt into his mouth, chewing it and swallowing it, Wapple stroked his belly and asked his question. We want to go to the Iron Barrel Kingdom. Do you have a permanent pointer or a record pointer? No, I haven't even heard the name of this country. Sanji answered Wapple's question, and then Luffy beat him to their question. Do you have a doctor on board? I'm begging you, Shin is very ill now. Yes, but it's none of my business that your partner is seriously ill. Wapple said casually, his eyes kept wandering around the melee, looking for anything that looked delicious. With the gunshots of those around him, Usopp mustered up the courage to shout. If you want money, we have it. As long as you can cure Shin, our navigators will give it to you no matter how much you want. Ah, then there's no need. Since you don't have a pointer, just hand over your ship and treasure. You still want to pay for my own doctor to treat you. Confused, even if I kill you, the money will be mine. Ha, asterisk 3. ... What's going on? It's so noisy up there. Nami, who was in the girls' dormitory, looked up and looked a little confused. There had been a rumbling sound from above. And the shaking just now, those idiots won't hit the iceberg, right? Nami held her forehead and sighed, picked up the clothes she had put aside and put them on, and said to Vivi. I'll go up first to check the situation. Well, leave this to me. Nami was startled when she opened the door of the first-floor warehouse. Luffy's outstretched arm stood in front of her. Looking along the arms, I saw that Luffy's entire body had been eaten into Wapple's mouth, with only his arms exposed. Wapple said while eating. This guy is really chewy, a bit hard to chew. Of course, I'm the rubber man. Rubber bazooka. The arm that was extended behind him was retracted, and with a huge impact, it hit Wapple's abdomen, knocking him away. Lord Wapple. No. Master Wapple is a landlubber. It must be before Lord Wapple sinks. Etc. The soldiers who were hurriedly preparing to return to their ships heard a female voice. You have a doctor on board, right? Although I still haven't figured out what happened, they are definitely enemies. Nami doesn't need to be polite to them, with a sinister smile on his face. Hand over all your doctors, otherwise, he. The three of them, Luffy and others, positioned themselves possibly behind her, as if they were villains. ... How is it? Can it be cured? In the girls' dormitory, 3 doctors were looking at the letter lying on the corpse. There were a total of 20 doctors on the ship. Naturally, it was impossible for them all to come up, so they found 3 who were recognized as the best in medical skills. Seeing the 3 well-armed doctors being silent, Nami spoke anxiously from the side. When seeing a doctor, she was most afraid of the doctor frowning and being silent. In the dormitory, Sanji and Zoro acted as a deterrent. Luffy and Usopp were too noisy, so they were asked to watch the people outside. Sanji said a little unhappy at this time. Can I tell you if it can be cured? The 3 doctors looked at each other, and finally the man standing in the middle explained with a trembling voice. Sorry, we can't cure this disease. Ha, be careful, I'll feed you to the fish. Sanji stepped forward with a look of displeasure on his face, thinking that these 3 people were pretending to be tough and refused to treat the enemy. The 3 doctors were so frightened that they kept retreating. Fortunately, Zoro stopped Sanji and signaled the 3 doctors with his eyes to continue. What is going on? Is it a disease you have never seen before? The man in the middle took off his mask, revealing a face with many wrinkles. He swallowed and said, I am the one with the most medical experience. We really can't cure this disease. I read in books that it was cassia fever. As he spoke, the doctor turned over the letter, revealing the seal on the back and the deep purple Madara wound. This is the cause. In the hot and humid forests, there is a parasite that carries the virus, cassia. People who have been bitten will be infected with fever. The virus will lie dormant in the human body for 5 days, constantly tormenting the patient, accompanied by high temperatures above 40 degrees, severe infections, myocarditis, and arteritis. He died 5 days later, so this disease is also called the 5-day disease. But cassia has been extinct for over 100 years, and we have done absolutely nothing to prevent this disease. Are your friends playing with their bare backs on some ancient island? As he told the story, the doctor became more and more confident and began to question everyone. Zoro immediately thought of the reason. Several people had previously formed a group of primitive people on the island. Nobu was the last one to be put on a grass skirt. Before that, he had indeed kept his back exposed, and he had used his spirit for a while. He went to pick up Sanji in technique, his body in a completely motionless state. Thinking of this, Zoro became more determined to become stronger, and he couldn't help but say, if I'm strong enough, I can subdue Hedgehog and put a grass skirt on him. That won't work. The one Luffy made is a perfect match for you, a green algae head. Letter. Everyone who was a little listless instantly regained their energy. Nami and Sanji immediately pushed past the doctor and came to the patient's bed. Shin's weak voice came. Who can help me turn over? Why am I lying here? Ads by Bid Gear. Chapter 96, A Peaceful Letter. Don't worry, I can't die. Seeing everyone's worried expressions, Shin opened his mouth and explained that he thought he still had a seal that could reveal the truth. After sending away the 3 doctors, Nami asked for some books on medicine and some medicines that might help Shin's condition. I also learned the best news in the past few days from the doctor. In this snowy sea, there is an island. It's called Drum Island, which is the island Wapple and the others are looking for. There is a witch doctor who is over 100 years old, Dr. Kuleha. If there is anyone who can cure Shin's illness, Dr. Kuleha is definitely the best. It is possible, after all, the age is there. Luffy didn't mean to kill them all. When they were leaving, Luffy didn't stop them. Shin woke up and explained the seal on his back to everyone, explained his situation, and ate some nutritious meals prepared by Sanji. Then he lay down again like a loser who just ate and slept. No one paid attention to the seal that Shin mentioned. Although Shin was very confident, the prickly-headed man was about to die now, and the seal still didn't move at all. The incubation period of the disease is 5 days, and it takes 6 days to get to Alabasta. There is not enough time, and plus we learned that there is an island nearby. The Melly completely ignored the pointer pointing to Alabasta and began to search for Drum Island in this snowy sea. After searching for a day and a night, Sanji finally saw the island. The entire island is covered in ice and snow, with several chimney-like peaks standing tall, exactly like the Drum Island that Nami heard about. However, the people on the island did not welcome them. There were many villagers with weapons standing on both sides of the estuary. Get out of here! A leading man wearing a felt hat and a green coat shouted at the melee. Pirates are not welcome here. We are here to see the doctor. Luffy and Vivi stood on the edge of the boat and explained their intentions one after another. Someone is sick. However, the villagers obviously do not believe this statement. Cunning pirates often use various means to try to land on the island. Boom. Perhaps because he was holding a gun for the first time, a villager misfired and shot a bullet at Sanji's feet. Although it missed, such an almost provocative attack also aroused Sanji's anger. Asshole guy, etc. Nami stepped forward and stopped Sanji who was about to attack. It would be troublesome to start a fight here. Without the guidance of local people, the devil knows where the witch is. She turned around and explained to the villagers sincerely. We heard that there is a doctor named Dr. Kuleha here. Please, please. Our friend has the 5-day disease, and only Kurha can treat it. Nami's eyes were sincere and she knew Kuleha's name, but this was not enough to make the leading man believe her. As long as I see the patient, you can enter. Luffy, Usopp. The two of them hurried into the girls' dormitory and hurriedly took out a spring roll from inside. Look, these are our 6 spring rolls. Huh. Nami realized something was wrong and couldn't help turning into a shark face and shouted loudly to the two of them. Who asked you to bring the quilt out with you? Are you wrapped like this to suffocate him? Seeing Nami untie the quilt and reveal the letter with a peaceful face inside. Looking at Luffy and Usopp who were being beaten next to them, the leading man probably confirmed that these people were not bad people. He personally boarded the ship to check the condition of the letter, then put away his weapon and said to several people. Come with me, I'll take you to the village. The man's name is Dalton, who now lives in Bighorn Village. He was originally the captain of the country's guard. He was later dismissed because he was dissatisfied with the actions of the former King Wapol and rebelled. Not long ago, a group of pirates attacked. As the king, Wapol led his men and soldiers to abandon the people and evacuate to the sea. Dalton took over the Drum Island to prevent it from falling into chaos, and quickly won the people of trust. So, we don't have a name here yet, and we can't even tell if it's a country. In Dalton's residence, he said this. From Nami's mouth, he learned the news that the Melee encountered Wapol and his party at sea. After learning that the two groups had a fight and that Wapol was knocked out by Luffy, Dalton couldn't help but trust a few people more. At this time, all members of the Straw Hats except Zoro are here. Due to Shin's condition, the shadow clone cannot be separated and can only be left to Zoro to guard the ship. The Dr. Kuleha you are looking for is the only doctor on this island. Look at the highest mountain outside. Nami by the window looked out and saw a snowman face. Super Snowman. Lola the Snow Monster. Finish. Looking at Luffy and Usopp high-fiving outside the window, the anger level in Nami's heart kept rising. Now is the time to build a snowman. Boom. Boom. Nami carried the two idiots back into the house and motioned for Dalton to continue. There is a castle on that mountain peak, and the witch you are looking for is there. Can't you call her down? The hedgehog doesn't have the ability to move right now. Sanji asked a little annoyed with a cigarette in his mouth. No. Dalton shook his head. We have no way to contact her. She sometimes goes down the mountain, looks for patients to treat, and then takes away valuable things from the patient's home. It may be the patient's entire property or a few coins. What a weird old lady. Luffy and Usopp sat in rows and drank hot tea obediently. Vivi had a doubt in her mind. But isn't she already over 100 years old? How can she get down the mountain at such an old age? Legend has it that on nights with a full moon, she would descend from the sky on a sleigh. Some say she lives with a strange animal she has never seen before. Ah, it really is Yukio, right? I knew there must be a Yukio on the snowy mountain. Usopp shut up. Nami forced Usopp to shut down, and then asked. Is there really no way to contact her? Where's the phone bug? When talking about this issue, Dalton looked embarrassed and looked very ashamed. Actually, most people on the island have never seen a phone bug. Under the squeeze of Wapol, the citizens have almost no spare money to buy phone bugs. After Wapol left, we experienced pirate attacks and almost destroyed the country. This is why we are so wary of pirates. Can I just wait here? Hey, Shin, did you hear that? Wake up. What are you doing? Luffy kept shaking the peaceful letter, and his head was shaking. The four Nami couldn't help shouting at him, is this the way to treat patients? With Luffy's efforts, Shin slowly opened his eyes and heard Luffy say. I'm telling you, you have to climb up the mountain to find the doctor here. Let's go up the mountain. What are you talking about? How can Hedgehog-head go up the mountain with his physical condition? That's right Luffy, look at the mountains outside, they are even flatter than my nose. Even if you can go up, you have to consider the condition of the letter. Mr. Even if the ninja is in good health, he will die if he falls from above. The four Nami people were trying to persuade Luffy to give up this idea. From their few words, Shin also understood what Luffy was going to do with him. He stretched out his right hand from the quilt with great effort, with a smile on his face. Then it's up to you, Captain. I will handle it. Ads by Bid Gear. Chapter 97 Kuleha was stopped. After confirming the mountaineering matter, everyone decided to set off immediately. Considering Luffy's IQ, Nami specially assigned Sanji to follow him. Vivi and Usopp helped Luffy fix the letter to his body. It was a bit weird for Luffy, who was 172, to carry the letter of 190 on his back. When Nami and Usopp got off the ship this time, they both had phone bugs. She assigned her own one to Sanji so that if anything unexpected happened, they could contact her as soon as possible. Seeing that Sanji took the phone and was about to take a sniff, Nami punched him and at the same time said earnestly. The witch will come down from time to time. Maybe she will come down right after you leave. Put away this phone bug. Yes, Miss Nami, if you really want to go, I suggest you climb up from the other side. Going up the mountain from here, you may encounter Labang, a very ferocious carnivorous rabbit. But we have to hurry, so who cares? If they dare to come, I will kick them to death. Then let's go, we must do it before Shin dies. Stop saying such unlucky words and leave quickly. Are they really okay? Dalton looked at the backs of the three people and said, climbing the snow-capped mountain still takes a patient with him. Nami nodded vigorously. In terms of combat effectiveness alone, these 3 people are absolutely fine. As long as they don't do anything stupid on the road. The cold wind was still there, and Dalton refused Dalton's invitation to enter the house, so the 3 of them waited in the cold for their companions to return. ... It's getting colder and colder, and the wind is picking up. Hide. It's because you go out without shoes. Just wearing sandals makes me feel cold. Hide. That's my style. Hide. Also, I heard that people in the snow country don't sleep. They say they will die if they sleep. Hide. Nonsense. How could such a person exist? Hide. It's true, I've heard it said before. Hide. Is it Usopp? Hide. No, I heard it in the village tavern. Don't talk about this yet. They have been attacking us since just now. You're so annoying, you bastard rabbit. Sanji kicked a rabbit away. The little thing had been attacking the 2 chatting people since just now. The 2 of them didn't pay attention and turned away slightly to avoid it. Who knew that this little thing was quite persistent and kept attacking, which was annoying to death. What is that? It's probably the Laban that Dalton was talking about. I thought how old he was. After solving this small episode, the 2 continued to move forward, and they were still far from their destination. ... What? You said the witch came down. An ant who looked like a hiking bear sent the news that the witch doctor had gone to the next door village of Kokowit. What a coincidence. Nami held her forehead and sighed. How come coincidences always happen to them? Usopp took out the phone bug from his crossbody bag and prepared to call Luffy and Sanji who were climbing the mountain. But he was stopped by Nami. Let's wait until we find the witch. It will be bad luck if we arrive and the witch leaves again. That's right, uncle, can you lend us transportation? I'll take you there. Riding on a sleigh pulled by 2 discorn sheep, the 4 of them headed towards the village of Kekawait. I'm sorry, it's all my fault, because when I received the news yesterday that the witch doctor was going down the mountain, I thought it would take a few days for her to come down. Don't take it to heart, it's not your fault, you have already helped us so much. However, everything seemed to come together. By the time a few people arrived at Kokowit, the witch had already left, and a villager delivered another message. Not good. Wapol has landed in Bighorn Village. After hearing the news, Dalton hurriedly flew to stop Wapol and not let this tyrant take over the place again. The 3 of Nami got the sleigh left by Dalton and found out the direction of the witch's departure from the villagers. The 3 of them set out again to find the witch. Really? Why do everything happen together? And that Wapol, wasn't he beaten away by Luffy? Looking at the map, Nami couldn't stop complaining. The sled is running towards Geistar where the witch has left. Usopp and Vivi are assembling ice blades. Geistar was once a small town on the lakeside in the north. The sled needs to be equipped with ice blades to move forward at full speed. ... What's this? Probably, he's the parent of that bastard rabbit just now. Sanji took a deep breath of cigarette and said a little helplessly. In front of the 2 men were dozens of giant Labans, which looked exactly like the little rabbits that harassed them, except that they were even bigger. The little rabbit from before was lying on the back of the leader, still waving his little fists at the 2 of them angrily. Dodging Laban's right hook, Luffy fixed the letter behind him with both hands and said with some distress. I really want to knock them all down. Come on, the hedgehog is much bigger than you. If you move too much, he might fall. Sanji kicked a rat over and tried to persuade Luffy that the letter was a bit bigger than Luffy, about 20 centimeters taller. What should we do? Of course, run. I'll open the way, and you just concentrate on running forward. Under the siege of a bunch of Labang rabbits, the 2 broke forward, but there were so many Labang rabbits that they couldn't get away for a while. At the bottom of the mountain, before Nami and the other 3 could catch up with the witch doctor, they encountered a green algae-headed one without a shirt on. Didn't I ask you to guard the ship? Why did you fall in the snow? I just wanted to do some winter swimming training, and I ended up swimming here somehow. Can't you tell the difference between water and snow? Besides, why can you get lost while swimming? Nami and the other 3 couldn't complain, so they had a special winter swimming training and swam to the snow. Can normal people do this? After Zoro got on the sled, the number of people on the sled increased to 4. Zoro kept trying to take off Usopp's coat and put it on himself, but Usopp refused. As time passed, several people also saw a sleigh in front of them. Unlike them, the sleigh was pulled by a reindeer wearing a hat. The back of the car contained a lot of daily necessities. Found it. The legendary witch, Dr. Kurha. Nami's face was filled with joy. Her vehicle talent was at its fullest, and she quickly got on board with the sled. Through constant acceleration, she finally caught up. Dr. Kuleha. Wait. The 139-year-old girl looked puzzled. Chopper, stop, someone seems to be calling us. The sleigh stopped, and Chopper had a very human look of confusion on his dear face. I saw Nami's 4-person sled coming from behind, and stopped in front of them with a wonderful flick. Zoro and Usopp, who had been fighting, were thrown away. Kuleha raised her sunglasses to her forehead and carefully looked at the 4 people in front of her, and then said. Do you want to ask me the secret to staying young? Ads by Bid Gear. Chapter 98 Target. Bighorn Village. No. Nami stepped off the sleigh and came to Kuleha, and said sincerely. Please also help our partners. Do you want to treat a disease? Kuleha looked at the four of them again. It didn't look like anyone was sick at all. Are you going to help that shirtless young man heal his brain? If you can, please treat me by the way. Nami held his forehead and sighed, and then said. A friend of ours is suffering from the 5-day sickness. Legend has it that only you can treat it. No matter how much money you have, I beg you. The girl in front of her solemnly bent down and made a standard 90-degree bow. Kuleha put on her sunglasses again and said. Kashia, I didn't expect anyone to be infected with this disease now. Where is your partner? So you agree. He, my charges are very expensive. Nami's face was filled with joy, and her smile couldn't help but stiffen when she heard the words, the charge is very expensive, but she still turned around and called Usopp. Call Sanji, I hope they haven't started climbing yet. Usopp hurriedly rummaged through his pocket and found the phone bug, and Kuleha asked curiously. Did you just say climbing a mountain? Yes, because there is no way to contact you, my captain wants to take his companions directly to the castle on the top of the mountain to find you. What a bunch of interesting little guys. That's a cliff 5,000 meters above sea level. Kuleha got back on Chopper's sleigh and motioned for everyone to move on. Keep going forward. There is a cable car ahead that leads directly to the top of the mountain. I am Monkey D. Luffy, the man who will become the Pirate King. This is Usopp's number. What are you doing to introduce yourself, idiot? The call was already connected at this time, and the first thing that came to mind was Luffy's famous words. It sounded like the two of them were quite leisurely, not climbing a mountain. Great. Before you start crawling, we found the old lady doctor. Who is the old woman? I am still a woman in her 130s and in her youth. Ah, the girl kicked Usopp over. Vivi beside him caught the phone and said. Come back quickly, we are now. Speaking of which, Vivi was in trouble. The current position of everyone was between Kokowood and Geister, but Luffy and Sanji on the mountain didn't know how to go. Nami came up and took the phone call, and commanded. You guys go back to Big Horn Village first, we'll meet there. Okay, Nami-san. By the way, the previously defeated Wapol also landed there. If you encounter it, just fight it again. The guy who eats the iron sword. Okay, we get it. Rush. After hanging up the phone, a deer face appeared in front of Nami. Ah, don't scare people casually. As a reflex, Nami punched the hat-wearing deer on the head. Chopper didn't pay attention to this matter and asked hesitantly. As the Wapol you just mentioned the previous king. Huh, Nami saw the talking deer for the first time, and her eyes were a little more careful. Seeing that Chopper kept dodging, she had to say. Yes, he was indeed the king here before. Really? Chopper's tone was a little more firm, and he turned around and wanted to run in the direction of the big horn. Wait, where are you going with my supplies, Chopper? Dr. Dory, I'm going to stop Wapol. We must never let him rule here again. Chopper hates Wapol so much that he will never be allowed to reoccupy this place now. I'll go with you. I just have to pick up a patient. Doctor, can you come with us? Do you want me to treat it? Although you can charge more money this way, unfortunately, Kashia is not a disease that can be easily treated. The antibiotics required are all on the castle on the top of the mountain. Okay, so where is the cable car you mentioned? Follow the road and you can see a tree house and the cable car is right there. Okay. Nami nodded and looked back at the personnel arrangements. Vivi, Usopp, you and the doctor go to the castle first. Zoro and I go to Big Horn Village to pick up Luffy and the others. In the end, Chopper pulled the cart and took Nami and Zoro to the Big Horn to stop Wapol. Dr. Kuleha and Vivi Usopp went to the castle on the top of the mountain first. On the way, the shirtless Zoro was freezing in the car, while Nami kept talking to Chopper. Your name is Chopper, right? Stop talking to me, human. Why can you talk? Are you demon fruit power? This has nothing to do with you. You ran so fast, much faster than when we came here. Stop being so verbose, even if you praise me, I won't be happy. ... On the other side, Sanji hung up the phone and said to the letter beside him. How's it going? Can you still hold on? Shin lay on Luffy's back and replied feebly. It won't be that troublesome once you have it under control. You'd better hurry up and show the way. Rush. It's so noisy. Please be quiet, you stupid captain. Sorry. At this time, under the feet of the three people, there was a huge rabbit, Labang. There were now 3 Tomo in the already red eyes. Previously, the 3 met the Labang tribe who came to seek revenge. Sanji originally opened the way, and the 3 were about to escape from the encirclement. Unexpectedly, Luffy stumbled and threw the letter flying out, inserting it upside down into the snow. He happened to fall in front of a Laban, who pulled the letter out of the snow out of curiosity, smelled it, and threw the letter to another Laban. Just like that, the letter was tossed around by Labang like a ping-pong ball, and Luffy and the 2 finally snatched the poor hedgehog back. Such a big movement also made Shin wake up, with a puzzled look on his bruised and swollen face. Fortunately, Sanji explained the reason on the side. Of course, he omitted the part about playing ping pong and just said that the letter accidentally fell to the ground. Seeing the Lebang tribe gathering again, the collective began to jump up and down, trying to create an avalanche. Shin struggled to open the Sharingan and controlled the leading Lebang. Then he let it drive away the other Labans, and the three of them rode it and continued forward. It didn't take long for Usopp's call to come. Sanji was responsible for guiding the way. The three of them rode Lebang and ran towards Bighorn Village again. Speaking of which, isn't it a little too crowded? Sanji asked while smoking a cigarette. Not only was it a bit crowded, but the speed was not very fast either. It's not that high to begin with, so it's amazing if it can carry the three of us. Shin explained on the side that Lebang was only 3 or 4 meters tall at most, so it would be difficult to carry 3 people on all fours. The data comes from the right side, which is almost 2 Luffy tall. I don't have the energy to control another one. Let Luffy run away. No, I want to ride a rabbit too. Hedgehog-head, go down and run. Look, Luffy is the captain, and I have to show the way. It's obviously best for you to run off. Do you hear what you're saying in human terms? Laban, who was under the three of them, suddenly raised his head hard and threw off Sanji, who was riding on its neck and responsible for guiding the way. Facing the cold wind, Sanji could still vaguely hear. I almost know the direction, thank you, Cheesehead. Wow. The speed is getting faster, the rabbit is charging. 2 bastards. Ads by Bid Gear Chapter 99 Waypal's defeat. I see it, I see it. Luffy stood up and looked far into the distance, seeing Bighorn Village in the distance. After confirming the position, Shinshin closed his eyes with peace of mind. Don't drop me again. Give it to me. As Shin continued to sleep, Lebang also regained consciousness and immediately swung his body to drive the 2 people away from his back. Luffy ignored it, jumped to the front of Lebang, and started running wildly. Lebang scratched his head and was about to give chase when he was suddenly kicked in the back. Get out of the way, you bastard rabbit! Sanji, who was thrown down, came up from behind and kicked poor Lebang over. In Bighorn Village, Nami and 3 others have arrived. Zoro went up and kicked over a soldier and snatched away his cotton coat. Wapol and his men are humiliating Dalton. At this time, Dalton has turned into a human animal form. He is the bison form of the animal oxen fruit. And Li Lai Shuo, Zone Yi Ban Do Shi Bai Jiao Kongzoda, Danduo Dun Yu Yi Gi Ji Ming De Ruo Dian. Tai Hu Guo Min La Ideographic period. When the soldiers pointed their weapons at civilians, Dalton had to block the attack even if he was injured, causing injuries all over his body. The civilians who were watching did not dare to leave casually under the guard of the soldiers, and they did not dare to fight back without weapons in their hands. However, when Nami and the other 3 arrived, the situation finally reversed. Zoro snatched away the soldier's cotton-padded coat and then his knife, and dealt with the soldiers like chopping melons and vegetables. Chopper has transformed from the form of a 4-legged reindeer into a strong man with short hair all over his body. Although he cannot kill enemies as fast as Zoro, he can face the enemies with ease. Without the supervision of the soldiers, the villagers began to evacuate in a panic, but there were still many whispers that reached Chopper's ears. That's that, right? The legendary monster? It's Yukio, I've seen him before? So scary, legend has it that he can eat. The sound of discussion pierced Chopper's heart like a sharp knife. He could only grit his teeth and vent his anger on the enemy in front of him. However, the 2 soon encountered a dilemma. Wapol asked his men to collect the soldiers' weapons and eat them directly. Then it swallowed another house and combined it with the soldiers' guns and knives to turn it into a bunker. The whole body is covered with iron sheet, and the body is as big as a house. There is a cannon on the head, and a circle of muskets surrounds the chest. You can freely adjust the direction and fire. The abdomen becomes the door of the house, and the position of the hands becomes 2 giant swords. Look. Go up and look majestic. Swallow swallow Wapol house. It's not over yet. Wapol, who had successfully transformed, shouted, opened his mouth and ate his 2 men. That's disgusting. Cannibalism. Nami, who was watching the fight from the sidelines, couldn't help but feel disgusted. The scene of people eating people was quite shocking. Watch out, the miraculous combination will appear. The door to his abdomen opened, and a strange-looking human being walked out. Jess Malaman, isn't it just a simple stack of arhats? The wavy mouth is at the bottom and the afro is at the top. Compared with the simple stacked arhat, the intersecting parts are only covered by more clothes. Zoro clenched the 2 knives in his hands, holding one knife in his mouth and asked Chopper next to him. Hey, Yukio, do you still have the energy? I'm not Yukio, my name is Chopper. Compared with those villagers, Chopper was much closer to Zoro who was traveling with him, and couldn't help but reply. Why can you still talk with a knife between your teeth? No matter what, I'll leave the fused man to you. What do you mean? Everything is fine. Zoro jumped on the house, dodged the bullets, and headed straight for Wapol. Although Chopper complained, he immediately followed and ate the blue wave ball he carried with him. Mito Stream, Blue Wave Ball, Ghost Slayer, Strengthening. Boom. The 2 attacks hit the enemy one after another. Although they did not defeat the enemy with one blow, they still pushed the enemy back continuously. In the ensuing battle, Chopper was able to do it with ease. The 7-stage transformation brought about by the blue wave ball made him completely unafraid of the fusion man. Zoro is in a deadlock here, and no one can do anything to anyone. Although Waipal's attack can't hit Zoro, Zoro can't break through Waipal's iron skin. Am I really that weak? Dodging the attack, Zoro kept questioning himself in his mind. Ever since Logue Town, he seemed to have been facing insurmountable opponents. Smoker from Logue Town, although the two have not fought each other, but he is unarmed and thinks that he cannot handle Smoker. The previous Mr. 3 can be explained by his carelessness. Now I can't even do anything to the idiot in front of me who obviously has no combat experience. You are a swordsman, right, even though you are a third-rate swordsman. Holding the blade tightly in his hand, Zoro finally figured it out, with a smile on his face. Ever since he learned about Haki's existence, his pursuit of armament should be higher than his swordsmanship. What did the hedgehog say? Zoro opened the 2 knives in his hands, put one in his mouth on his right hand, flicked away the bullets, and rushed forward. Although I think it's more appropriate to use the EI slash, if you don't have a scabbard, just try to do it. The knife in his hand kept bouncing off the incoming bullets. Wapol wanted to attack with the giant sword with both arms raised, but Zoro stepped back and dodged it. Using 2 giant swords as springboards, Zoro jumped high, held the sword hilt with both hands, raised it above his head, and slashed from top to bottom. Itori Ryu Horse Ghost. Ah! The iron sheet covering the whole body was cut open like butter, directly attacking the main body. After all, Wapol was not a warrior, so he screamed and lost his ability. When Zoro landed, Wapol returned to his original size and was wailing while covering the bleeding scar on his chest. Zoro inserted the knife in front of him.
Roronoa Zoro is a swordsman. Ha ha ha, it feels pretty good, but I should have said it before the fight started.
Zoro clapped his hands, laughed and left, not having to support Chopper as the fusion man there had been dealt with. You are so strong, thank you for taking out Wapol.
Ah, what is this Tanuki? Where is my Yukio brother?
At this time, Chopper became standing upright, but even more petite, only half a Zoro tall even with the hat on. Hearing the rude names of Tanuki and Yukio at once, Chopper's forehead popped up with a few, hash. The gratitude he felt just now disappeared in an instant, and he turned into a strong man's form. He pushed Zoro down, hugged his legs and pulled them to his waist. I told you I'm not a Yukio, I'm not a Tanuki either, I'm Chopper the reindeer.
Ah, it's going to break, it's going to break. Okay you two, Luffy and the others haven't arrived yet, let's go see Dalton over there first.
Nami stepped forward, patted Chopper's shoulder gently, and kicked Zoro at the same time. Dalton was still injured and fell on the snow, but luckily he hadn't fainted yet. As Chopper took out his small bag from the sleigh, took out the first aid tools from it, and began to treat him skillfully, Nami discovered Chopper's identity as a doctor.
I didn't expect you to be a doctor, you're so awesome. I won't be happy even if you say that, you bastard.
Hey, you're obviously very happy to see you squirming around. Hey, Zoro, Nami-san, ads by Bid Gear Chapter 100 Poor Letter. Luffy and the other 3 were like Marines who arrived late, and they rushed over after the incident was over.
Because the rope holding the letter was broken earlier, Luffy could only rely on his hands to hold the letter on his back and ran over honestly. After Luffy arrived, he ran directly to Chopper, who was still in the form of a strong man.
Are you the old lady doctor? Please save Shin. Chopper was speechless, and Yukio and Tanuki couldn't bear it. Why do they think of themselves as an old woman? Boom. Nami forcibly helped Luffy regain his senses and pulled him aside by the ear. Chopper was still providing emergency treatment to Dalton, so don't disturb others.
It seems like it's over here. Sanji looked at the mess around him and said with some regret, he still wanted to move around. In addition to the 2 people who came, there was also a group of militiamen who arrived on the battlefield. They were people from Kokowit village and organized their own resistance after hearing the news of Wapol's arrival.
What the hell is going on here? Where's Mr. Dalton? Monster over there, what are you doing, Mr. Dalton? Get away from Mr. Dalton quickly. I've seen you before, you're Yukio, right? People over there leave quickly, it's a monster. The sounds of monsters reached their ears, and the militiamen didn't even see clearly what Chopper was doing. They just judged it by its appearance and thought it was not a good person. Chopper remained silent, clenching his teeth and continuing to bandage Dalton. Although Dalton still retained consciousness, he did not have the strength to speak. He could only look at Chopper with tears in his eyes full of apology.
It's so noisy. Luffy threw the letter to Nami and stood behind Chopper. On the way here, Nami explained the story of this country to Zoro. He crossed his arms and stood to the left of Luffy.
He was fighting for your country just now. Judging a book by its cover. Be quiet, he's healing Dalton. Sanji lit a cigarette and walked to Luffy's right side with an unhappy tone. He could see what Chopper was doing. The 3 figures stood like a city wall between the militiamen and Chopper, blocking the calls of monsters. The militiamen raised their weapons, but no one dared to step forward. The situation was tense for a while. The militiamen were tense and did not know what to do. It wasn't until Dalton said sorry that they all calmed down. After Chopper's treatment, Dalton finally had the strength to speak, and the first thing he said was to apologize to Chopper. With tears streaming down his face, he turned into a human animal form. Chopper's bandage was of good quality and was not stretched open. He struggled to get up. He shouted at the militiaman. Look at my posture. Am I a monster too? He is not a monster. He is my benefactor. Just like the swordsman over there, he is the benefactor of this country. What are you doing? Are you going to attack the people who defeated Wapol with weapons? Mr. Dalton. Dalton's reputation among the people was very high. As he shouted, the militiamen showed guilty looks and lowered their weapons. Well said, Uncle Niutu. With a big smile on his face, Luffy came up behind Dalton and patted his back repeatedly. Ahem, we're too ignorant. Dalton coughed twice. Luffy had no idea how unbearable these shots were for a patient. Find the victims, clear the battlefield, collect the prisoners, and tie up all Wapol and his men. No, can Wapol leave it to us? While Dalton was commanding the militia, Nami appeared out of nowhere, and she remembered that Shin could take out other people's fruit abilities. Of course. Strictly speaking, this is also your trophy. Great. Sanji-kun. Kick him unconscious. Okay, leave it to me. Sanji happily followed the order and went to work. Zoro frowned and realized that something was wrong. It seemed that someone was missing. Where's the hedgehog? Letter, aren't I carrying it? Nami said with a puzzled look on his face, then touched his back. His expression instantly froze. Where's the letter? You ask me. Chopper maintained his strongman form, pointed to an open space, and said hesitantly. That should be your partner, right? I think you stepped on him when you came here. Hey, letter. Nami quickly stepped forward, patted the footprints on the back of the letter, put him on the sleigh, and ran back as if nothing had happened. He walked back to his original position, assumed his original posture, pointed at the sleigh and said to Zoro. Look, isn't the letter right there? Yes, really? But I clearly saw it just now. Hey, I didn't see anything. Chopper, who wanted to stick to the truth, made a decision that went against his conscience under the attack of Nami's eyes. He must have been dazzled just now. Nami-san, it's been taken care of. At this time, Wapol not only fainted, but was also tied up with a rope. Sanji turned around and came to Nami like a treasure. Here, this is the key on that guy's body. I thought there might be something there so I took it off. Thank you, Sanji, everywhere, I should do it. Sexy Kappa, ha. Is the swordsman without a sword ready to challenge me? Hey, you don't need to use a sword. I can deal with you, a perverted Kappa, with my bare hands. Then 1 foot is enough for me, you can't bear the strength of my palm. Then 1 of my toes. Why are you two quarreling again? Nami stepped in between the two of them and pushed them away. Now there was still serious business to do. Let's go, uncle, do you know where we can get meat? Boom. The greedy Luffy was forced onto the sleigh by Nami, and Wapol was tied to the back of the sleigh. Everyone got on the car one after another. In order to make room, Shin lay down on the legs of the 4 of them. It's really weird. Shin's head was right on Zoro's lap. Even though his eyes were closed, Zoro felt very uncomfortable. Chopper walked to the front of the sleigh, turned into a reindeer form, and was about to continue pulling the sleigh forward, but suddenly there was a Luffy on his back. Venison. So delicious. When it comes to reindeer, the best thing is hot pot. Boom. Nami's heart was very tired and she hadn't calmed down for a moment today. Chopper was also frightened and almost had to eat another blue ball. Where's the letter? Luffy just got up and let him fall into the snow again. Shin, who had suffered a lot today, was put on the sled again, and Luffy had to ride on Chopper life and death, so a spot was freed up. There was no need for Nami to guide him. Chopper was very familiar with the environment here, but the Luffy on his back who kept trying to chew the antlers made him uncomfortable. Get off my back quickly, I'm not food. Reindeer charge, ads by Big Gear.